This is the D6 generation with your hosts, Craig Gallant.
Oh, if you're getting any compensation, it's not charity.
Russ Wakelin. You put me on a boat with frickin' dragons attacking me and whatnot? Now we're talking. And Curt Covert in the third chair.
Crap in a hat. So that's how we're going to play it, huh?
With contributions from Total Fangirl.
Vampires do not sparkle.
And our loyal listeners.
Are you crazy? That's like 400 hours of gamer nonsense.
Welcome to another edition of Rapid Fire, the roundtable discussion of all things gaming, coming at with the speed of righteous indignation, burning up the ether over a good old-fashioned controversy. Today's edition is brought to you by Adam B., who would like to say thank you to the D6G for your support for helping me stay connected to the hobby through another deployment. Keep up the great work. No, Adam, you keep up the great work, and thank you and all of the men and women out there for your service. I'm Geekly McNerdigan, your host today. As always, our panelists are Russ Waco Wakelin and the head backstabber himself, Curt Capri Pants Covert of Smirk and Dagger Games. Issue number 1. Controversy is a state of prolonged public dispute or debate, usually concerning a matter of conflicting opinion or point of view. The most applicable or well-known controversial subjects, topics, or areas are politics, religion, and sex. Controversial issues are held as potentially divisive in a given society because they can lead to tension and ill will. As a result, it is often considered distasteful to discuss them in the open company in many cultures. Question. In an attempt to quantify controversy, science fiction writer Gregory Benford crafted what is now called Benford's Law of Controversy, which states passion is inversely proportional to the amount of real what available. Dan Rather Russ.
Reason.
Crime Expo Curt.
Madness.
Information. Guys, come on, think about it. The less actual information these people have on either side of controversy, the more passionate they get. Man, you guys are not passionate enough. Issue number 2, or too passionate because you have no information. Issue number 2. The World English Dictionary defines class as an informal term conferring excellence or elegance, especially in dress, design, or behavior. As in, that game's got class. A nearly subjective term, one person's class is often another person's characterlessness. Question. On a scale of 1 through 10, with 1 being Lindsay Lohan playing Cards Against Humanity, hopped up on pain meds while swerving down Sunset, and a 10 being Audrey Hepburn playing Carcassonne on a gondola gliding down the Grand Canal, how classy is the Kingdom Death wet nurse? Reluctant Russ.
I would say 4.3.
Cloyon Curt.
Give me a 2.3.
Oh, come on, guys. Lindsay Lohan isn't that bad. She was great in Mean Girls. She's going to make her comeback. I just know it. The wet nurse, on the other hand, you just can't rate that kind of wrong. Issue number 3. Nihilism is the philosophical doctrine suggesting the negation of one or more putatively meaningful aspects of life. A movie, book, play, or other narrative work is considered nihilistic if it seems to feature a worldview that seems to deny or minimalize characteristics seen as laudatory or important in most mainstream works. Question. How many heroes must die before a book is considered nihilistic? Captain Jim Wilder Wakelin.
13.7% of the heroes in the book.
Apollo Creed Covert.
The best one.
Wrong! It was a trick question! All the heroes can die if their death serves a purpose. It is only the easy, pointless corruption of the heroes or their senseless deaths that saddle a work with this nihilism epithet. Issue number 4. A creation myth is a symbolic narrative of how the world began and how people first came to inhabit it. Creation myths are the most common form of myth found throughout human culture and generally developed in oral traditions, thus typically having multiple versions, all of which are very difficult to track without some form of advanced tracking program. Question. In the study of creation myths, what does the term ex nihilo mean? Slavic Road Russ.
Worshipping small rocks.
Coatlicu Curt.
The birth of pens.
Pens.
Pen. Birth of pens.
I give you a 0.5 for creativity. The literal translation of the phrase ex nihilo is from nothing, and so is often used to refer to myths in which the world is created by a force or being from nothing, sometimes out of his own essence or excrement, or sometimes from pure thought. Although a computer program that did it would probably make it easier. That's it for now. Thanks for listening and good night.
This episode of the D6 Generation is brought to you by GameSalute.com. Check out gaming news or find out what the new hotness is on Springboard. GameSalute.com.
And by Battle Foam, protecting your army so you don't have to.
And the War Store, bringing the war to your door since 1999, and that is for a decade or more.
And by Audible. Try the service, get a free book, and support the show. All by visiting audibletrial.com/D6G.
And by Geek Nation Tours. Rise up and join the Geek Nation, touring the world at geeknationtours.com.
And Wargame Soldiers and Strategy magazine, making historical wargaming less scary and more fun.
Hello!
Hello!
Hello.
And welcome to episode 119 of the D6 Generation.
It's a big number. Just doesn't strike me as being particularly important.
Wait till $1.20. I'm Russ Wakeland.
I'm Craig Gallant.
And I'm Curt Covert.
Hey, Curt!
Hey.
Welcome back, Curt.
Welcome back,
so much.
Mr. Covert. Oh, we're so excited to have you on the show. Curt Covert, of course, the main man behind Smirk and Dagger Games.
Hey, everybody.
The ultimate backstabber.
Have you placed any decent daggers lately?
I have. I've gotten some new additions to my collection, which, of course, feature that kind of gamelplay. So I've been playing a little level 7 and gosh, what else have I been playing? That's
Whoa! Don't shoot your bolt now, buddy. Save it for achievements in gaming.
We're going to we'll grill you on that in a second. So good stuff. That's good
He's
stuff.
so eager.
He is so excited. It's awesome.
I'm
So-
still waiting for him to bust in a song.
Maybe we'll get a song from Mr. Covert before the end of the show. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about I'm Too Sexy for My Game.
I am too sexy for my game. Too sexy for my game. So I'm so sexy it hurts.
Stop.
Ouch.
That does hurt.
Yow!
And we're also going to talk today, we're going to have a very special guest on. In addition to Mr. Covert, we're going to have Colin McCallister is going to come on from Lone Wolf Development. And
He can't be stopped.
all four of us are going to chat up about this brand new Kickstarter they've started about Realmworks. We've been talking about Realmworks now for, I don't even know how long. Craig and Rafe
Seems
and
like
I.
an awful long time.
It does. We've all played it before. You worked with the beta tool, and now they've got a Kickstarter to finalize the project. We're very excited to talk to them, and that's going to be a great time as well. So that's coming up later in the show. Now, up first, though, before we get to all that stuff and achievements in gaming and all those good things, we have some contests going on right now, or a single contest with 2 big prizes.
We do.
We do. So last episode, we were doing not predictions. I keep calling it predictions. No, we were doing resolutions for 2013. And during that process, I resolved that I'd like to have more listener participation on the show. And the way I thought they would do that was with bribery.
Aha.
So what I said was, if you call into the voicemail line, and this is still going on for till the next episode, so to episode 120. So go ahead and call in our voicemail line. Our voicemail line number is what, Craig?
Our voicemail number is no idea.
1-339.
Oh, there it is. 1-339-368-6051.
There you go.
Go to
Wait a
our
second.
website.
Can you say it again? Because I can't type that fast.
339.
Maybe
Yeah.
you need a pen.
Three,
Maybe
three-
you need a pen.
A pen.
Maybe you need a world-creating pen.
That's what I need.
339.
As Nihilisko or something.
339-368-6051. Or if you, let's say you're in the UK and you're like, I really want to participate in this. but
Let's say you're in the UK, your name is Phil, and you don't want to pay the extra cash.
you can Skype the voicemail, and if you go to our website and click the voicemail button, it'll Skype you right in from voicemail. Or if you're like, I don't do Skype, that's not my scene, man. That's fine too. You can send in a WAV or an MP3 file if you'd like as well to our email address
Bro.
at contest@the d6generation.com. And what we're going to do is I'm going to make a little montage out of some of those, pick the most fun ones, make a little montage for the show, a little more listener
Training
participation.
montage.
Yes, and then
Like Eye of the Tiger.
all of the entries, even if you didn't get played in the montage, I'm going to go through all the entries. We're going to roll up some dice, and we're going to get a random 2 winners, and those 2 winners are going to get to pick from the prize tub.
So you can win by just being featured, and you can win by getting rolled.
Yes, it's a double win. That's right, Curt. I like how you think.
Unlike Rick who always loses when he gets rolled.
Wow. That was... Welcome to 2003. Welcome.
Oh, what is it called? Rolling? What is bum roll? No,
Rick
what is
rolled.
it?
It's called Rick rolled.
No, I know, but what's it called when you like steal the watch off a homeless person? That's rolled.
I think
It's called illegal.
Yes, it's called theft.
Yes. It's a theft. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
There are
okay.
kinds of rolls that aren't winners. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, let's just move along.
Kids, stay off drugs.
Yes, indeed. A couple of announcements. First of all, we just recorded the Lost Chapters.
We
And
did.
Craig, what did we talk about in the last Lost Chapter?
We did our full book report on the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. We did not make the same mistakes we did when we were talking about Name of the Wind, and we didn't let that Craig guy go on for like half the recording just doing a synopsis. So it's all character analysis and deconstruction of the plot and stuff like that.
And it's chock full of spoilers, so Curt...
It is just one big, giant, massive spoiler to the forehead.
So Kurt's like, I want to read this book someday, so we didn't ruin it for Curt. So he didn't join us. It was just Craig and I going off. If you've read this book and you want it, and you can't talk to your friends about it because they haven't read it yet, this is your chance to virtually share in the discussion that is the ending and all the crazy things that happen in the First Law trilogy. So check that out at the...
Go in depth into every character that even can possibly be considered major and how they end at the end of the series. So literally, I don't think there's a spoiler that goes unspoiled.
We spoil it all, baby. That's how we roll. That's right. So if you want to check that all out, you go to the D6generation.com, go to the right-hand side of the webpage, and click on the Lost Chapters link, and it'll tell you all about how you can get involved in the Lost Chapters. Support the show and get an extra hour of content every couple of weeks.
Exactly.
To go
Think
along
of
with
it
all
that
these
way. You're
stories.
supporting the show,
Exactly.
but you're also getting an extra segment every week.
Now, Curt, I know you've been asking things like, guys, you review all these games. How do I go back and find a game you reviewed in an old episode, right? Let's say you want to know which episode the D6 Generation reviewed Cutthroat Caverns.
I would like to know that.
You would like to know that. And our listeners have asked us for years. Craig and Russ, please put together a list of all... We finally did it.
We did?
We did. It's called the Game List. If you go to our website, at the very, very top, there's some links. At the very, very top of the page. And one of them says Game List. You click on that link, and you get a list of every game we reviewed in alphabetical order. And it's got an image of the box art so you can find it in your store. It's got the name of the game. It's got a link to more details about the game. It's got a short blurb paragraph from Craig and myself, what we thought of the game. And then it's got the episode number that we review the game in as well. And if the game was discussed in detail in multiple episodes, we do that as well. For example, Warhammer 40,000's got like 4 episodes. War Machine's got like 3 episodes, that kind of stuff. We list
Dark
all the
Heresy's got 3.
Dark Heresy's got several. So you can go in there.
By the way, Cutthroat Caverns would be 29. That was pretty early on.
It was. Yeah, good stuff. So check that out if you want to. If you've always been wondering what we've been doing, where this stuff comes. And we'll keep that up to date as we go along. So as we review more games, in fact, we just added Space Cadets to the list. So it's already in there as well. So.
XXXL 63.
Another fine Smirk and Dagger product, Curt.
That's very handy, that new tool you have there. I like that.
Yeah, so hopefully that'll be interesting. And
it only took me, like, what was it, Russ? I mean, I was writing these little... I mean, yeah, Russ had to make links and pictures and stuff, but I had to write these little blurbs. I mean... Seriously.
It was a bit of work, but we got it all done. It's ready to go.
Even Agricola is on there. Episode 67.
Yeah, and that's just not really right, actually.
It's not.
You know what else is on there?
Going to this little page is worth it just for what we have to say about Agricola.
That's right. So, and you should also see if you can figure out what's the only game on the list we've never reviewed.
Yes, there is a game here that we have never reviewed.
But it's on the list.
Long-time listeners will know it without even going to the list.
Exactly right. So, all that's been said, what's it time now for Craig?
Oh, I don't know. Is it time for achievements in gaming or achievement? I don't know. I don't know, honestly. My son has met achievements in gaming.
There you go. Well,
That's what happens when your 2.5-year-old plays with your soundboard.
That was a lot of work. So you're going to have to make up for some of that, Craig. Who is Achievements in Gaming brought to us by today?
Well, Achievements in Gaming is brought to you with a thank you to Garage Hammer, Painting Tabled, Bad Dice Podcast, Ohio Hammer, Wizzo Dice, Dirigo Hobbies, and everyone who contributed to or participated with Team Cranky for Extra Life 12. Looking forward to Extra Life 13. Go Rhinox Riders!
Nice. So, now, Mr. Covert, the very first thing I'm going to do is talk about what you've been playing lately. What have you been playing lately, Curt?
No, I'm not in the mood anymore.
Oh, darn it.
We wasted
We should have just ran with it, Craig. We should have ran with it.
I was all excited about level 7.
So what do you think of level 7? What do you think?
I tell you what, I had a really great time with it.
Nice.
I think we've gotten 3 plays in thus far, and 2 of them were the first level, and we had 1 person out of 4 live there. And then we went to level 2, and we just can't get past it so far. So, but what I love about it is I love the fear that you build up draws the aliens to you, and the threat that you build draws the guards to you. And I think that's a real fun mechanic.
Yeah, so you got to kind of take the balance between, are you going to attract too many aliens or not enough guards, and vice versa. And then what you do is dictated too by it, right? So like if you become very aggressive, it tilts you one way or the other, right?
Exactly, yeah.
That's pretty neat. Well, how do you like the components of that game? The only thing we've really heard negative about it is just everybody was like, well, it's privateer press. Where's my models?
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
A good game is a good game. All that other stuff is Chrome. So.
All right, nice. See, spoken like a true game designer. I like it.
Yep.
Anything else? Any other games you've been playing, Curt?
City of Horror.
Ooh, now I've heard really good things about it. I've not played it myself. What'd you think?
I think it's fun. Here, the hook that got me was, it's not so much about how many zombies you can pop. It's really, when it comes down to who the zombies are going to eat, it's who you throw out the door, and it goes down to a vote.
Nice.
And I just think that's hysterical.
So it's Survivor meets Survivor of the Island, versus meets zombie game, basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
So definite screw your labor. Whereas Zombie Side is pure co-op. This is a very screw your neighbor game.
Well, you do have to work together a little bit, but when it comes right down to it, yeah, you're making alliances and breaking alliances, and all the stuff of good snickering behind people's backs.
Nice, I love it. Awesome. Anything else?
A little bit of Smash Up, some Ascension.
You're busy.
You are getting some games. Nice.
And those are other people's games. So of course we're playing a bunch of stuff on our end as well.
Are you doing some new prototype playing?
We are indeed.
Can you talk about it, or is it too secret?
Well, let's see. One we decided not to pursue so far, but I can tell you that 2013 is going to bring Dread Curse to the Smirk and Dagger lineup.
That sounds cool. Now, can you give us like the elevator pitch? What's the Dread Curse?
I will tell you. Dread Curse is, as you might imagine, it's about piratey goodness.
Pirates are for win. Pirates are pure win.
So this is a push-your-luck game of cunning thievery and ample turns of fortune for 3 to 8 unsavory souls. And the play revolves around drawing loot from a cloth bag, and then stealing from other pirates in order to gain the most valuable stash of treasure. Now, each turn, players reveal coins from their hidden cache to win the captaincy, or one of other 7 crew assignments. And each of those crew assignments, and that changes every turn, they're able to each draw from the bag in a unique way. They get a special cheat available only to that pirate. Ooh. And basically you stay in as long as you dare and grab as much gold as you can, but you have to beware of the black spot.
Oh,
If you end the game with it in your stash, you lose. And of course, there's nice ways to give the black spot to other people, put it back in the bag, and a whole set of nasty cards you can play on each other as well.
Nice.
Yeah,
that sounds really.
Now, this game is actually it also marks a new achievement in gaming for me.
What's that?
This will be the very first game that we have brought in from another designer.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Nice.
The designer on this is Stuart Sisk, and I think this is his first published work, although I think he's designed some other things as well. But it was just a very clean system, easy to get right into. Pulling the chips out of the bag was a lot of fun, and quite honestly, there's this. I won't say it's like an auction thing, because you get to keep the gold you kind of bid with, but it has that kind of you have to reveal your gold, and the downside of revealing your gold to win the captaincy is that people know who has the big coins if you do that. So it's kind of a nice little strategy piece over top of it.
Oh, cool. That sounds really neat.
It sounds pretty deep.
Well, I can't wait to see that one. That sounds like a lot of fun, Curt.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very good. Do we know?
Is it pirates?
Yeah, is it coming out? What are you looking like? Q4 sooner or later?
If all goes well, that will be Gen Con.
Oh, nice, excellent. Well, yet another good reason besides just the stuffed little Candyland dudes to head over to the Smirk and Dagger booth.
Indeed.
Great. Anything else? Is that
to seeing Curt's smiling face?
Well, of course.
And
that was
I have
thing.
never seen
Smirking
Curt
face anyway.
smirking. Yeah, good call.
Good call.
Well played, sir. Well played.
Nice. Any other projects, Curt, or is that pretty much keep you busy there?
Well, my partner Justin has a game in the works as well, which I don't think it'll be releasing this year, but it's definitely a pretty interesting design that is and really his first outing, and it's right now titled "You and What Army."
Love the names.
Yep, and You and What Army is essentially a King of the Hill style game. Where you're trying to take the castle on the hill, and you have to kind of work together in order to do it, but only one person's actually going to take control of the hill. So
that sounds really neat.
So far in playtest, it's gone extremely well.
Okay.
So
neat. Oh, good stuff. Good to hear Smirk and Dagger still cranking out the hotness. That's awesome.
yeah.
Good stuff. So, Craig, what about you? What have you been playing?
Well, I've been playing a lot of Dystopian Legions, getting ready for our big TempleCon event, which we should actually mention during the show at some point.
We should.
And we mention it now. We're doing a big, huge TempleCon event. Our Dystopian Legions, actually, it's Dystopian Legions and Dystopian Wars.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing it with the War Store.
Mm-hmm.
And so at TempleCon, if you're at TempleCon, the TempleCon is going to be the big Dystopian Legions push for the War Store. They're going to be doing events all weekend long, culminating Saturday night, starting at around 6, with our big, huge mega battle. And this is not like one of our demo games that we usually play at TempleCon, that we set up a big scenario and we cycle through 3 different times. This is a massive mega battle with huge armies. Everybody can take a squad, and we got a bunch of stuff to give away, and it's just going to be a slaughter if my recent experiences have anything to go with.
Bloodbaths are awesome, and a lot of preview miniatures that aren't out yet from Dystopian Legions as well. So that'll be cool to see it also.
Yes, indeed,
and Craig's table is amazing. Just saying.
I have been working hard on this table, yes, and so you're going to see a lot of. We got actually a couple of the big models that have been studio painted, so you'll see some of that too.
Do you have a favorite?
Do I have a favorite? The studio models, you can't go wrong with the Faust, which is a giant foot-tall robot with interchangeable arms now, because now it can come with several different weapons choices. So
that's always good.
Pretty impressive.
Giant robots are win.
If you could look at something that cool that you didn't have to paint, that's even better. So I've been playing that. I did half a Dreadball demo.
Okay, I'll give you half an achievement for that.
I couldn't get through it. It's A, I don't think it's for me, and B, I mean, it's probably because I don't know enough about the game, but I found it was basically a cycle of me rolling 3 dice against Chris rolling 4 dice. I needed 5s, he needed 3s. He kept beating me and knocking me down. So, and I kept saying, I'm the dwarves. Aren't I supposed to be harder to knock? Boom! Oh, never mind. And so I really, actually, it ended my game night prematurely. I was probably not in the best frame of mind to start with, but halfway through the demo, I was like, I can't do this anymore. Thank you very much. I've got to go, and I walked out.
Oh, well, all right. Well, I played Dreadball too. I'll talk about that in a second. I enjoyed it a little more than you.
You loved it.
I did.
You had 5 dice.
I do like Blood Bowl, though, too. So
probably you love Blood Bowl. I
Yes.
never liked Blood Bowl.
Yep.
And I can almost guarantee you that you weren't in a lot of those situations where you were rolling fewer dice looking for a higher number.
That's true.
Constantly.
Yes.
Like every time.
How do you feel about that?
I was. It didn't help that Chris could not fail to roll 6s all the time either. And in an exploding dice game, that's gonna leave a sting. But yeah, I'd say it was 75% me just having bad luck and not being in the right frame of mind, and 25% I think the matchup between dwarves and vermin, rat men, not Skaven is maybe a little on the not Skaven's side. But anyway, I did a Sedition Wars brief, the first mission in Sedition Wars. I liked it, but we'll talk more about it in upcoming episodes, and I'm sure Russ will talk more about it. He's played it a lot more than I have. And I played Perudo, because no day will be complete until you played Perudo, and that I won. So yay, me, I won Perudo.
There you go.
That's all. I've been doing a lot of other things and not a lot. I haven't had a lot of time to play games.
Well, that's a shame. I, however, have been playing quite a few games. I did get... I don't
know how you do it.
So Sedition, well, the trick now is I'm training my family, you see. So
that's an excellent...
So this is how, for example, I played 4 games of Sedition Wars. I backed Kickstarter at the $100 level, and I got my big game last week, and I got all excited. I love the models. The models are by Mike McVeigh, one of my favorite sculptors on the planet. So I just loved them. I geeked out. I totally assembled them quickly, started painting them, dropped whatever else was working on. And I got 4 games of Sedition Wars in, 2 of them against my wife, because her one of the websites she writes for, Nerd Approved, is like, can you write about more games? And Nicole's like, sure. So she's like, hey, the Sedition Wars thing, want to play a few times? Like, I write about it. So it's okay. So we did. So we played Sedition Wars twice, had a blast, had a lot of fun with it. I really like it, just the horror element of it is so fantastic. It really captures the sort of space zombies so well, and there are a lot of little nanite concepts. These little nanites float around the board, and they can infect dead bodies and resurrect them and can become evil guys. They can also infect members of the sort of the Space Marine good guys, can infect them, and then they start to get infected, and they got to fight the disease. And Nicole had one of her guys run all the way to the objective, just about to push the button, and right at that moment, she failed her infection resistance roll and turned into a little space zombie. It was fantastic. Really a lot of fun with that game.
She lost?
Well, she lost that person, but then, so she had to, but she wasn't dead. She still had the rock and roll guy. The rock and roll guy rock and rolled a 6, blew away all my guys, ran to the switch, was about to throw the switch. I got all my zombies on him. He rock and rolled again, got a 6, blew them all down, and then went casually just turned on. Yeah, that's how it's done. He hit the button and purified the whole room, got it cleaned out, and she won that scenario. So it was awesome.
Now, just to clarify, I had that same guy and did that same thing, and I rolled a 1 both times.
Yeah, so what you got to do is if you remain...
more 6s, that's what I'm learning.
Well, if you remain stationary, you get all 6 shots. That's the trick. So you can guarantee yourself 6 shots if you do that.
That's true.
Also a handy trick. Yeah, it's an awesome game. You got to do overlapping fire. It's really, really cool squad combat. It's got a full
There's
a lot going on there. A lot of fun. Disappointed a little bit. The miniatures are off the charts great. Very disappointed right now, though, in the boards. The boards are warping like you take them out of the box, they look fine. You put them on the table to set them up, and Curt, this game's got these it's kind of like you're laying out your little space station, and it's got multiple tiles, and the tiles are all double sided. There's a lot of variety there, and there's all these pre-built missions, and so you lay the tiles out and
linen card stock. So
yeah,
it's like it should be really.
It looks
nice.
like it should be nice, and it looks nice in the box. So you take it out and lay it down, and over time they start to curl up from the table, and it's weird because it's wintertime now and the heat's on. It's not particularly moist or damp right now. So they start to curl up, and they curl up, and if you let them go long enough, they really curl up pretty steep. So I flipped them over, and they slowly went flat, and then they started slowly curling up the opposite direction. I was like, well, that's not good.
It's quite impressive.
So then I put them under some really, really heavy books and let them sit overnight. And then in the morning I got up, and they looked all very, very flat, took the books off them, and sure enough, 15 minutes later, curling up again. So I don't know, Curt, I don't know if you ever had produced components that do that, and you're like, oh, these aren't, I mean, you know what this problem might be, or is it just sort of someone goofed up on the manufacturing there?
Well, I'm not a board expert, and certainly there are different types of quality board, but most chipboards are straight up chipboard, and for some reason some of them are more susceptible to it, and I actually don't know why that is.
Yeah, it's weird. So I don't know what they're still researching what they're going to do about it. But I'm going to try keeping them flat for a couple more days, and maybe it'll work itself out. But that's my only gripe, because otherwise it's great. It's a lot of fun. Also managed to get to the table. I did get a copy of the new Z-Man game. I bought this myself because it had an elephant on the cover. Clash of Cultures. Now, I should warn you.
How much Russ loves elephants.
There's a giant war elephant on the cover of this game, Curt. It's like, Hannibal attacking Roman type thing going on.
Yeah.
Looks cool. Now, in the game itself, there are some really cool components, but there are no elephants. So...
Wait a second.
A little bit of false advertising on the cover there, I'm not going to lie.
There's a big elephant on the cover and no elephants in the game.
None.
It's ridiculous.
It's seriously, it's very, very, but that said, That's the
I
only
have Zev's number. You want to call him?
we're gonna have to. That's the only disappointing part of this game, though. The components are cool. Little cities build up with multi-part bits, so you have this little center of your city, and then as you add a temple, you actually put a temple bit next to your city, and then you add a fortress bit to your city, and the cities grow, and you can expand your culture. And then what's cool is all those different colored bits. You can send your cultural influence into your opponent's city and replace one of his bits with one of your bits. It's like your culture invades their city, and suddenly they're all doing the hula because your hula dance is so cool, and that gives you some bonus victory points. You can send your warriors out. You get your settlers. The terrain looks cool. The mechanics are simple but really, really deep. Very fun game. Played it 2 players with Brian. Had a great time with 2 players, and it goes up to 4. I can't wait to try it with larger play group. Really, really fun 4X little civilization style conquest game. And finally, Craig, my Descent 2 campaign is back underway.
Yes, with a whole new crew.
We've rebooted with mostly new crew. We have some old guard and some new, and we are having an absolute.
Yeah, one old guard.
Well, Josh and Randy. Randy played last time when it failed. So Josh and Randy, and then Adam and Adam's friend Mike. I just met Mike. Sorry, Mike, if I got your name wrong. I think it's Mike.
And that's wicked cool.
I'm sorry, Mike.
I'm a big time star. I can't be bothered to learn anything.
No, I'm terrible. Kurt, you know how this is. I'm terrible with names, right? Are you
Anybody who's listening since episode 1 knows it, but I'm going to take advantage of those new listeners who haven't listened that long.
Nice.
Russ is just such an egomaniac with his people's names.
Wow. Okay. So anyway, we've already blasted through 5 dungeons, and here's the cool thing: we've got the new expansion going on with this one, and one of the things that's cool is it adds these side quest rumors you can do optionally. And the heroes did one, and it brings back, they went out and they're kicking my butt on this one, and they got a ton of money. You don't get any experience points in the side missions, but the heroes get tons of money. And for those who remember Road to Legend, there were always these little side missions you could do, these like sort of optional big dungeons that gave the heroes just tons of cash. And this is now brings it back on the system, which is a great way for your heroes. Like a dungeon before, they'd beaten me, but they got absolutely no loot. And so they're all concerned because they know if you don't keep getting that money, over time, the overload's going to get ahead of you. And this time, they realize that happened. So they're like, we're going to try that side quest. And they totally rocked it. They got all the money. They got the relic. They got the super awesome demon sword. And I'm like, oh, that stinks. So it's pretty cool. Very exciting about that. Also played another new game, and this is another really weird but interesting Euro, Archipelago. Have you heard of this one, Curt?
I have seen it. I have not played it.
Really interesting components, very bright, vibrant colors, and it's a very, very heavy worker placement game. But I liked it. I liked it a lot. It was sort of like, I don't know what to describe it like. I felt like it was like Puerto Rico, but all the Puerto Rico players, they were like, it's nothing like Puerto Rico. But it sort of felt like Puerto Rico, except I found it more enjoyable than Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is kind of a game you can sort of, I don't know, it feels like a sort of a puzzle you can sort of figure after enough plays, whereas Archipelago had enough randomness in it. Now, one of the players that didn't like this, because, for example, what's really interesting about the game is there's the victory point conditions are all passed out face down. And there's more cards with victory conditions on them than there are players. Now, when they're revealed at the end of the game, all those victory conditions apply to everyone, but you only know the one victory condition you're holding. So, for example,
that's interesting.
The people who have, mine might say, you get bonus victory points if you have the most ports, and it'll say like you get 4 victory points if you have the most ports, and second place number of ports is 3 victory points. Someone else might have a card that says, well, there's also victory points for being the person with the most money. But that card might not have been dealt out, so I don't even know. So you got to kind of play a balanced game at all times because you never really know what's going to be the key piece.
That's kind of interesting. That's like one better than what they did with Lords of Waterdeep, where each player has their own kind of bonus point, but right. The fact that this applies to everybody is kind of nice.
Well, the interesting thing is there's no core victory point except for those cards. So in Lords of Waterdeep, there's this core victory point thing you can go for no matter what, right? Yeah. But in this game, all you know for sure is the card you have, and you also know everybody else scores against that. So if some other player just happens to be going up, and then but I would think would be interesting about this is with repeated plays, you're going to be able to sort of guess what other people have based on what they're doing. But then with even more repeated plays, you're going to be able to then try to fake out your opponent by hint. There's a lot of metagaming that can go on with this one. So it's kind of a neat game.
Huh.
Definitely worth checking out. I really enjoyed it. Also played Dreadball. Now I know Craig was kind of like, really? But I liked it a lot. But it's Blood Bowl, but it's different than Blood Bowl also. But a lot of elements are the same. There's tackle zones you got to cover. There's dice, and you try to beat numbers. But I really enjoyed it. I did hear, though, some of the complaints that Craig was playing. I played on the Orc versus the Human table, and those two teams seem to have a really, really good, even matchup. Craig was on the Dwarves versus the basically Space Rats, Space Skaven table, and that matchup was a little more unbalanced because, of course, you got the Dwarves who are tough but also very slow against the fastest team in the game, obviously because there's rats. So that was more one-sided, and I would guess that maybe the dwarves could do well if you really knew all the mechanics and get into it.
I would think you probably needed to know a lot more for your matchups and for your strategy on where to get hit, where to be hitting, and
and it's also
it seemed like the balance was a little like, yes, they were faster, but they had other skills that weren't as strong as mine, but for some reason those skills were never being brought into play.
Right, you got to know how to get it, force the game to play in your terms. Yeah, it's tough. It's interesting though. I really liked it. I need to play it a few more times, but it could possibly replace Blood Bowl for me if with a couple of little, I just got to play it a few more times to make sure, a couple things I like. It does mitigate some of the total random luck in Blood Bowl. Like, for example, in Blood Bowl, for Blood Bowl players, when you press your luck or do things like when you try to get that extra square and you fail, and then you get a bad roll and fail your armor save, and then you fail your wound roll and you just die, right? Because you tripped on a shoelace trying to go for an extra square. In this game, you can still press your luck and try to go extra square, but there's no armor roll for that. So you fall down and you lose your activation, but you don't also die by accident. So in this game, you never really get killed. You get injured and you go to the injury box, and then over time you work your way back into the game. And like hockey, what's cool about this game too is unlike Blood Bowl, where Blood Bowl models football, where the gameplay stops when a score goes back, or rugby, this game models more of hockey, or actually even highlight, or games that don't actually stop even when you score. So what happens is you run down and there's these 3 different goals, kind of like Quidditch, and you throw the ball through the goal, and then it goes through the goal. The players don't reset. You score, and then the ball immediately is ejected back into the middle of the field. So wherever your guys happen to be, so if you made a huge press and got your whole team down or all over his goals, you score, the ball bounces back into the middle, and now you got to reset your guys. So you got to run back really fast. It's kind of like basketball. You score, they throw it back downfield. You got to really, really get back there. So it never stops. Much interesting, very, very different feel than Blood Bowl, but it still has a very tactical feel. Really, really interesting game. We'll see how it does. The Kickstarter version was really cool because it had all the extra wooden components and stuff. I haven't seen sort of
Will's Kickstarter version was
yes. I haven't seen sort of the off-the-shelf version, so I'm kind of curious how it
has a tendency to overspend.
Well, it's his thing, man. It's
not overspend. Not overspend. He goes for all the bells and whistles on every Kickstarter.
He likes to live large on his gaming, and that's hey,
he likes to live.
God bless him, because that means
he's a gamer.
And right, exactly, Curt.
He's a gamer whose first child hasn't quite arrived yet.
Right, and God bless him. I get to live vicariously through his awesomely overblinged games.
We all get to use his.
I love
stuff.
And finally, again, I got 2 more games in here, again, with the family. My oldest daughter, as I mentioned before in the show, is loving Hordes. We got another Hordes battle in there. Had a great time with that. And then she was so excited about that, we ran out and bought a river. So now we have our trees. We got a river now. I am loving the Gale Force 9 table in a box stuff. Oh, that stuff's so good.
It is beautiful.
Oh, my goodness.
And it's well priced, too.
It's well priced, and it's easy. You just put a little flock on it, and you're done. Oh, wow, it's awesome. And then also my girls like Summoner Wars. So they played some wars against each other, and I just refed it, and they had a great time with that as well. So you got a lot of games in with the family there.
Excellent. And where did we play most of those games, Russ?
Well, of course, we played them at Myriad Games, our favorite local gaming store. And you know what? There's a Myriad Games now closer to you if you live in New York or even Connecticut.
That's right.
Because Myriad Games just opened up a store on Staten Island.
Staten Island!
That's right. So, Curt, how often do you go down to the city there?
I don't get down to Staten Island very often.
Well,
but,
it's a little bit of a drive.
But I go down to Manhattan every once in a while.
So, see, you're down there. Maybe you should swing over and say hi to the folks there at Myriad Games. Great store.
I should do that.
And they carry a full line of Smirk and Dagger games as well.
They do indeed.
They do. What about modeling, Craig? Curt, I know you're not a big modeler. Have you done any sort of crafting or blinging out your games or anything?
The only thing that I did, I actually picked up. I did an amazing trade with a guy who handcrafted a Wiz War set out of dental stone and painted it and all this kind of stuff. And I'm sure it took him crazy amounts of time. And I said, hey, listen, yours is beautiful online. How much could I pay you for it? He's like, well, you couldn't pay me any amount. It's I couldn't put a value to that. It's like, oh, well, okay, well that's cool. He's like, but I will trade. And I was like, well, I'll give you one of everything I have. He's like, done. So,
wow, nice.
But yeah, so now I've also added some other interesting counters and different things. So I've been kind of blinging out my Wiz War set a little bit.
Very nice.
Well, that counts. That's awesome.
It totally counts.
Yeah.
And actually, I have to get you guys the fresh meat expansion for Cutthroat.
Oh yes, I'm very excited to see that. Yes, indeed.
And I a lot of your listeners may know this already, but when we released in August of this year at Gen Con, we quickly discovered that we had some missized cards delivered in every game in the shipment.
Oh, no.
And that was both for our base game reprint and the fresh meat game. Essentially, the standard size playing cards, which should have been 2.5 by 3.5 inches, just weren't. And it made it very difficult to shuffle together with previously printed materials.
Right.
Oh.
So after a lot of discussions, our printer made things right, reprinted the run, and those games are finally delivering in next week.
Oh, good.
And we got extra cards and trays. So if you go on our website, there's instructions on how to get replacement sets for those that have already kind of sold out through the system. And your local retailer is really going to be the place to get them. And there's like a whole instruction sheet with order numbers and everything else. So.
Oh, good. That's awesome, Curt. You guys are able to fix that for everybody. That's
yeah. Well, it was important to us. We wanted to make sure that we delivered a quality product that we could be proud of. So. But in any case, the stuff in the box is amazing, and you guys have to see it. So I'll send you a copy.
Can't wait. Achievement for sending us loot. Always good. Can't wait to try it out.
Can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, you can't. What have you been working on, Craig?
What have I been? Well, I've been a little busy. In preparation for our... Did we mention we're having an event at TempleCon?
Right.
We wanted to have... I've had this board idea in my head literally for years. And I've been slowly gathering up bits and pieces, whether in real life or online in links. And Russ and I have been scrambling around the internet and with the help of Spartan Games to pick up some extra bits and pieces. We are going to be playing on a full urban table that over the last 2 weeks, I have painted 6 full-sized buildings for.
They look good, too.
That are all painted and grunged up so that they would work well for, dust.
Yeah, we're not taking any pictures. We don't want to spoil this, so we haven't taken any. Well, you think you took one little preview picture.
No, I took pictures, but they were for Spartan Games.
Right.
So there's a lot of buildings. I have then put a lot of my armor cast ruined brick buildings on there also to make it look like a war-torn city where not all the buildings have collapsed yet. And there's a canal running down the middle. So I've built the base, which is 18-inch, 2-inch foam on either side that has been faced with textured wallpaper and then painted to make it look like tile or brick or something, streets, and painted to match the bases of all the buildings. And in the canal, there's a small river. It reminds me very much of many of the canals in and around Dublin, believe it or not, where there are these canals and the rivers are in different times of the year. The rivers are not very high. So usually it's just kind of like grass and moss and then a little river in the middle and trees sticking up. So we've done all that. It looks very cool when it was put together. It was all put together for the first time last night. So I'm all excited. I have also it is a mega battle. This is a mega. Did I mention it was a mega battle?
Mega battle.
Okay, so I had to put together... I have already got a ton of Dystopian Legions models. I had to put 12 more together, including Colonel Bourgaud and his crocodile. That's right.
That looks awesome. The crocodile looks fantastic.
Crocodile is cool. When it's painted up, it's going to look neat. My tread bikes, which are like giant snowmobiles that are used year-round. So lots of really cool models, and putting those together, I got to start painting those up. Spartan Games actually built me a bridge. They sent me the bridge from the rule book, and it was just too darn big. So then they built me a custom-made bridge to my specifications and sent that. So I got to get that all painted up, but that looks awesome. I built that into the board also. So it's been a busy couple of weeks, and I'm not done yet.
Nice.
What about you, Russ?
Well, not quite as much as that. I got totally sidetracked by Sedition War, so I did paint that up. So I assembled and painted 6 Vanguard, and then I also did 5 of the Strain. And these guys are so, when you get a model that's got so much detail on it, you just got to basically dry brush it, and you realize, OMG, this is almost done. I just got to put little details here and there and ink it.
I don't generally ever say OMG, so.
Oh, I do. So yes, it looked great. I really like them. And then Josh cranked through a bunch of them also, so we were able to play them together last Tuesday.
This looked better than yours.
I thought so too. And then my oldest daughter, we started working again this past weekend on her Warp Wolf. Now her last big model that comes in her starter box. She's doing a great job on that. And then once that's done, we'll move on to her little stone guardian
Very
golem
nice.
dude. So yeah, she's doing well on that too. So we're very excited about that. What about, let's see, what about other random geeky stuff? Curt, you seen any movies, read any geeky books or anything like that lately?
Ooh. Not actually. You know what? I just saw Looper last night.
What'd you think?
I actually liked it a lot.
Nice.
I didn't hear a whole lot about the movie when it first came out, and I'll be the first to say that I'm pretty easy to please in the movie department.
Mm-hmm.
But I just thought it was just fun to watch, and you could see where the story was going, and how it was going to develop, if you really thought about it. But I thought just very nicely, thematically, drawn out. So I liked it.
I rented it and then failed to watch it because my wife came home from her cruise. I was so bent out. I was like, seriously, you're not going to let me watch that? I don't want to watch this. I've been gone all week. Oh, okay, fine.
How did wait?
Just
Whoa!
watch it. Just
Wait,
watch it.
I just
Watch it.
just how does wait? She goes on a cruise for a week,
Yes, and then she comes back,
and then you can't watch a movie when she gets back.
And-
She gets first choice of the movie.
it doesn't really.
Well,
Matter.
no,
No, it wasn't.
She just got back. You got to spend time.
Right, exactly. It
but
wasn't
she went on a
question
cruise.
She wanted to watch something else.
Oh,
It was a question if she wanted to spend time with me. So if we were going to watch TV, she wanted to watch something that we both enjoyed. I was.
Yeah, I don't know
A,
about that.
I was going to give it to her, and B, of all the men I know, you're probably not the guy to enter into this argument. So
No, probably not. But I'm just saying. All right, so so let's see what else. So any other movies, Curt, or books?
No.
That's okay.
No real. Well,
You are running a small business, so that keeps you busy.
I tell you what.
and your real job.
Right.
You know the other thing I actually can now put down as an achievement.
What's that?
Here? Not in gaming so much, but I have just finished writing my first novel.
Wow! Congratulations, Curt.
Congratulations.
Thank
That
you.
is quite an achievement indeed. I'll give you 2. There you go.
Ooh, thank you.
That is so. Now, any dates on when it's going to magically appear on?
Well, here's the thing. I could self-publish, but I'm actually going to be giving the agent and official distribution route a try. So, I think it's got some real possibility to it. So I think we'll stick to that game plan for now.
Now, refresh our memory. What was the basic premise again? Because I think you told us last time you were with us.
Did I? Oh, I might have.
I think you mentioned you're working on something. I don't think it was obviously not done yet, but
Well, it's called Sidejack the Dreamwalkers.
Ooh.
And essentially it's a young adult novel. It's an action adventure story dealing with psychic espionage and lucid dreaming.
Oh.
So
that sounds cool.
the main character is this 14-year-old named Adam Krantz, and he's been suffering from recurring nightmares ever since his father's unexplained death. And then suddenly he starts remembering things only his father could have known. And as that starts to happen, he becomes embroiled in this web of intrigue as psychic black ops agents infiltrate his dreams, searching for the secrets his father may have buried there.
Ooh,
And that's generally the kind of thrust of the book.
that sounds really interesting.
That's very interesting.
I'll definitely check that out. That sounds cool, Curt.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Well, speaking of books, I have been reading some books lately. I just finished. Reading is a strong word. I've been listening on Audible to books. I just finished Best Served Cold.
How was it?
I really enjoyed it a lot. I liked the ending. I liked everything about it.
Now, is that the cowboy one?
No cowboys. This is the next book in the book
but
after First Love.
one's supposed to be a murder mystery. One's supposed to be a cowboy. Basically, they're different takes on those different genres.
This was neither a cowboy nor a murder mystery one.
Really.
So this is really good. It was basically the vengeance quest of a former mercenary, and it was really, really good. And I loved everything about it. And then the next book in that series is now Heroes. However, I did not do Heroes next. I've actually just got a road trip to Albany coming up, Albany, New York, for business. And it's cold and snowy. And I've also heard rumors that in Albany, if the lake effect snow comes in, they close the highways and you're sort of stuck.
Yeah.
So I'm very concerned that's going to happen to me. But anyway, so I got to get a big fat book that was sort of different to keep me from getting bored. So I got I'm going to start Prophets by S1 also. Now, did you like Prophets, Greg?
I did. It'll be interesting to talk to you about it when you're done, because the writing was he's a little redundant, which is more of an editing issue, I think, than anything else, where the same word will show up a couple times.
Oh,
I
hate that. That's a peeve of mine. Yeah, I don't like it.
It's a peeve of mine as well, but it's also a weakness of mine, so I try to give a little leeway. But there's one section where literally it's got to be word for word, because it was bugging the crap out of me, and it has to be almost a whole page of text is repeated later on in the book, to the point where I actually stopped the recording and looked at my phone to make sure that it hadn't accidentally.
Oh, you didn't accidentally go back in time?
3 hours.
Well, that's weird.
I was like, seriously, this is exactly the same. And then, of course, it ends with a slightly different observation about what's being talked about. But I was like, seriously, word for word?
Maybe he calls that art. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm looking forward to it. I wanted something sci-fi.
The story is great. The story is real. I think you'll really enjoy the
cool.
story.
Well, good. And if you want to listen to these kind of books, you definitely want to check out Audible, right, Craig?
Oh, yes. Go to our website and click through to the Audible intro deal, and you'll get your free membership for 30 days, which is, they just had another one of their silly sales where like 150 different books were like $5. It's just really, really cool. You get a free book with it, which is almost every book they make now. You get one free credit, which is worth almost any book they make. And that's yours to keep forever.
Right. So
all for free.
Good deal. If you like, again, going on a long road trip into possibly snowy climes, nothing better than an Audible book with you.
There you go.
To keep you awake at late night driving.
Yep.
One other achievement I got, this was sort of out of the blue for me. I didn't expect this, and I was very flattered. Jeff Engelstein emailed me a couple weeks ago and is like, hey, Russ, we're going to have this panel. I'm going to try to get this panel at PAX East. Would you mind terribly moderating the panel for us? And I was like, well, no, that sounds awesome. So the panel is, and it got approved by PAX just today, actually. So I was very excited, flattered that they asked me to do this. It's the impact of video game design techniques on board games.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah, so the panelists are Jeff Engelstein, of course, and Colby Dauch of Plaid Hat Games, and Christopher Badell of Sentinels in the Multiverse. All together, we're going to talk about that. I'm just moderating, so I'll just basically, throw questions to them and make sure they stay on topic and on time. But yeah, I'm very excited to be on that. I'm so excited to be doing a PAX East panel too. So
wow, that's very cool.
So it's Saturday at 10:30 at PAX. So look for that in the little schedule there. If you're going to PAX East, come by, say hi, watch the panel, and I'm sure I'll have some D6G bling or something to give out to you there if you show up and say hello. So
I should try to get by there.
Yeah, I'd love to see you, Curt. It'd be great.
Yeah, because I'm actually going to be in the board game hall.
Oh, great. Well, I'll look forward to seeing you then at PAX. I'll hunt you down there no matter what then. That's great.
Excellent.
I love PAX. Such a good
awesome.
time. Great stuff.
Very cool.
So yeah, so I'm excited about that. So Craig, what about you?
Well, I've got my Kindle back online because I got rid of that Blood Angel trash.
Wow.
I downloaded the
Don't hold back.
I'm telling you, man. Russ, I have read till my eyes bleed. I'm not the guy that stops reading, but I had to stop reading that.
No achievement for that.
I literally shut down my reading, my actual novel reading, for a month and a half because I just couldn't face it. I couldn't face it. And so so I'm back. I'm reading the next book in the Iron Druid series, Trapped, which is good. I'm really enjoying that. I'm zipping along. Literally, I'm looking down. I'm like, really? I'm 45% through already? I never got to 45% on the Blood Angel book. I seriously never got to 45%. So I'm really excited about that. And I was feeling very technically adept. Somehow I erased the dictionaries on my Kindle. And if you've got a Kindle Touch, one of the coolest items or elements of that is you can touch any word and it actually gives you the definition of that word, which I use every now and then. For instance, I just came across the word psychopomp. Curt, do you know what a psychopomp is?
I do not.
Neither did I. So I went and I pressed on it and it told me that I had no dictionaries. So I actually found my dictionaries.
Wait a second. Are you sure that's not the definition?
That would be very awkward. But no, I am sure because I then found a dictionary and my dictionaries in the cloud in my archive and I reloaded them onto my Kindle and then I pressed it again and I learned that a psychopomp is a deity or other supernatural being that shepherds souls to the afterlife.
Oh, that's
psychopomp.
Right. It's on the tip of my tongue.
So that was neat. And I am now listening to Heretic from the second book in the Apotheosis series by S. Swan.
Well, must have been pretty good since you're reading the second one now.
Oh, I went immediately right into it, which is another awesome thing about Audible is like you look at your phone, you're like, oh, I only got a half hour left. Couple button clicks, and then next thing you know, you've got your
get your next book.
Your next book is already on your phone.
That's awesome.
So it is. Awesome.
How is it that you're reading more than one book at a time?
I always am. Actually, I just started my English classes today, so I will be technically reading like 2 or 3 books at a time now. But
I'm not sure I could do that. I like focusing on one book.
Yeah, I'm not saying I enjoy it. I'm just saying that that's the way my brain demands I do it.
Nice.
So so that's me. And I have also been working very hard. I would like to take this moment to mention Wild West Exodus, the big project that I've been working on with Romeo. My comic book is actually come back from the printers.
Really?
And it's super exciting. You can go to the wildwestexodus.com website and look at it and order I think you can get the book or a subscription. It's very, very neat. I can't tell you how cool it is to see my name on a cover.
That's awesome. Achievement for that.
It's very cool. Also, if you want to check it out at the website or check it out on Facebook. Anyway, check it out on Facebook because there's all kinds of pictures. That Kickstarter starts next weekend.
Yes.
So I'm very excited. Of course, my heart's in my throat. I'm very nervous at the same time. Word count in that rule book under my name is probably going to be in excess of 100,000 words.
That's a lot of words, dude.
That's a lot of words. Yeah. And so it's basically 4 short novellas is what it's got inside it. It's a different way to do a rule book. It's not little short stories of 5 or 6 pages. It's literally like a novella about each main character in the faction, in the 4 main factions, and then one novella that kind of ties it all together. And then it's got all the regular stuff that you find in little blurbs and like encyclopedia entries for all the characters and the weapons and stuff. So it's a lot of work, but I'm really enjoying it, and I hope that you guys check it out and enjoy it also.
That's so cool. Congratulations.
Nice,
Thank you very much. I am over the moon, as they say.
So is that achievements?
That is achievements.
You're listening to the D6 generation. Born to game.
Now it's time for Battle Foam.
Battle Foam.
Indeed. And our friends at Battle Foam are doing whatever it takes to make sure your miniatures get safely from point A to point B. You know, let's just go through the basics. You spend a lot of time painting up your models. Here's a great example, Craig, okay? I get in the mail Sedition Wars, okay? Great miniature game that also happens to be a board game. Tons of models. There's like 80 models in there with the backer level I got. I'm like painting them up. I got them all assembled. They take a bit of work together. I'm lovingly painting them. I'm loving them. And then I'm like, uh-oh, I got to get these to the store, and I don't have a way to get them there. And, of course, but I call up Romeo. Hey, Romeo, I need a Sedition Wars bag. He's like, for you, Russ, or anybody else who calls, I can make that happen. And so I ordered my Sedition Wars bags. It shipped out within a day.
You got the last one.
I did get the last one because the Kickstarter's mobbed.
So it can't really happen for everyone.
Well, it would have. It happened. I just happened to call at the right time. I paid full price. I didn't get any discounts on it. But it's a fantastic looking bag. It's great. They are making more. This Kickstarter did so well. They're blowing out. But yeah, it's great looking stuff. I can't wait to get that going on there. And again, just you paint all those models. You don't want them to break. That's the worst. There's nothing worse than having the arms falling off you guys, having the paint chip. Battle Foam bags are just indestructible. They're fantastic.
Cool. They are. And don't forget also that you've got an array of different options for your Battle Foam bag. So you could do the black label so that it will survive a nuclear blast. You can do the basic standard hard pack.
Okay, and when you call in with your nerd rage and tell us that it does not actually survive nuclear blasts.
Yeah, deal.
That's what we call poetic license.
That's right. It's called hyperbole. Get used to it.
Right. This is an advertisement, but we're obviously joking in some areas.
Yes. Right? I would not test it with a nuclear
No,
blast.
do not recommend testing with nuclear blast. The ironic thing was maybe the bag would survive, but your models inside would be melted. So
That's true. That's true.
the radiation would be no good.
And of course, on the other end of the spectrum is the shield bag for those of us who don't want to spend quite that much money.
Right.
And then at the lowest end of the spectrum is the stacker box if you want to carry around your models in beautiful foam in a cardboard box, which of course is for actually storing it in home when you bring it in and out of your actual bag. So really, he has the entire gamut of foam covered.
Exactly right. And don't miss out on DualCon coming up this fall, right? So check that out too. They call it a DualCon because it features both Games Workshop Warhammer 40,000 and, of course, Privateer Press's War Machine and Hordes. So
It's like two cons side by side.
It's cons together, living in harmony.
Or not.
Just like that. So head on over to battlefoam.com and make sure your miniatures are protected the right way.
Battlefoam.com.
And now, what's in the news? With a shout out, it's coming! Robotech RPG Tactics, Defense of Macross Island. Look forward to Gen Con. See Palladium Books for more information or Robotech Battles at blogspot.com. Ooh, and Robotech is our lead story today in the news. Warner Brothers has recently announced that they're looking to Nick Matthew to helm the big-budget, big-screen adaptation of Robotech. This, of course, is going to be a live-action adaptation. We've been hearing about it for years. Several writers have been mentioned, but this is the first time they've named a director. Now, you may know Nick Matthew from some such films as none. He's actually never directed a big-budget film. So here's hoping it doesn't suck. Come on, Robotech. Anyway, speaking of movies, here's one. Game Salute has just announced that they've acquired the rights to produce board games and card games and other such family fun games based around the Princess Bride license. That's right, the great film with Inigo Montoya. You killed my father, prepare to die. Now is going to have his own game line from Game Salute. Quoting Dan Yarrington, I think we know him. I think we might. I absolutely adore The Princess Bride. It's a classic tale of excitement and adventure for the whole family. So, with many classic scenes, it's a perfect fit for our new story-building TM game line. Oh, what the heck's a story-building game line, Dan? Come on. You know what this stuff means. Anyway, sounds very exciting. Looks like they're going to have a bunch of mini-games around the game, and they're calling for game designers out there who think they've got a good idea for a mini-game that might relate to The Princess Bride to submit some ideas. Head over to gamesalute.com for more information on that. Very interesting. If you like Princess Bride, it'd be nice to see a good game based on that film. And more movie tie-ins. That's right, folks. You like Warriors, you like Dice, you like Quiz Kids, and you like Lord of the Rings. Well, congratulations. They're all merged together in Lord of the Rings Warriors. Actually, it's not called Lord of the Rings Warriors. It's called Lord of the Rings, the dice building game. Looks just like Lord of the Rings Warriors and from the same company, so you can bet it probably is. This is probably not a bad thing. Let's see. Speaking of Lord of the Rings, which leads us to think about Dungeons & Dragons. Don't know why, but it's got orcs and dwarves and elves. Let's talk about Dungeons & Dragons. That's right. Every edition ever, well, okay, most books ever from D&D are now available online in PDF from Wizards of the Coast. That's right. If you go to dndclassics.com, that's D, the letter N, D, and then the word classics, all spelled out, .com, you will find every PDF file available for purchase for all the Dungeons & Dragons versions ever. At least that's a large chunk of them anyway, and more are coming as time goes on, they say. That's pretty exciting. Let's see, speaking of technology, IBM, this is interesting. The Verge website is reporting that IBM is predicting that steampunk will be a very, very formidable fashion this year in 2013. Hey, IBM, welcome to 2011. Really? Anyway, apparently it wasn't big enough in 2012 or 2011, so 2013 is going to be the year of steampunk, in case you missed it over the last 2 years. This according to Big Blue. We'll see. They do have some really powerful computers, do an awful lot of thinking, so who can say? Let's see. We got off track here. We got to go back onto movie licenses. That's right. Yet another movie/TV series board game tie-in. How about Firefly, the board game? That's right. Based on Joss Whedon's series Firefly / the movie Serenity, Toy Vault has just announced they've acquired the rights to produce Firefly board games. This is very exciting, but I wish it was Fantasy Flight. Easily, Wakeland. Let's not pick on Toy Vault now. They, they make reasonably okay games, and Firefly board game wouldn't be bad. I'm sure we'd all like to see a more hardcore game company get it, like Fantasy Flight, but we'll see what happens. Good luck to Toy Vault. We hope to make a good game for Firefly. And I think we just mentioned Fantasy Flight, so let's talk about this a little bit. Fantasy Flight just announced they're releasing an RPG directly to PDF only. No hardcover version. They're calling it Fireborn, and it sounds like modern times, people are born with the ability to have like the soul of a dragon inside them. Sort of like Skyrim meets modern times meets Cyberpunk. I don't even know. But anyway, so you're a dragon warrior going around the streets of some major city, fighting off all kinds of weird stuff. Looks pretty cool. The artwork looks fantastic. Anyway, Fireborn, the RPG. Check it out for more information. It's going to be it's available for download now through DriveThru RPG. So if Fantasy Flight doing a digital version only of their thing. Speaking of digital versions, Small World 2, the Kickstarter, I believe we mentioned it last episode. They were going to have a big Kickstarter to relaunch a new version of Small World that supports more than 2 players on the iPad, blah, blah, blah. Sadly, after 10 days, they canceled the Kickstarter, saying that while they were going on towards their initial goal and they thought they'd hit it, but they think their campaign was messy and confusing, leaving many people confused and disappointed. So Days of Wonder has decided to cancel the project, and they're going to reevaluate what they're going to do. So we'll see what happens with that. So keep an eye on to Small World and Days of Wonder for more information going forward on that, I guess. And that's what's in the news. Time to talk about one of our newest sponsors, Conquistador Games.
Conquistador!
Now, they want us to talk about, we would be talking about tomorrow, their latest Kickstarter, just wrapping up there, but they just, back in stock, ready to ship now, is, of course, The New Science. And Craig just got a brand new copy of The New Science. How's it look, Craig?
Yep. Holding it right here, and it is a very retro-looking game. It is very, very cool with some awesome pencil sketches. So it is going to harken back to all these really cool scientific sketches from the Age of Enlightenment.
Indeed.
Let me read to you from the box top. The New Science, the giants upon whose shoulders the world of science stands.
Nice.
And basically, it's an awesome game with really, really cool components. Very heavy cardboard stock board. And it looks very much like the kind of Civilization kind of games that you actually like, Russ.
I know, but it's got science in it.
And what it is exactly, you're building up sciences and concepts, and you're basically taking one of, I believe there's 5 of them, 5 of the greatest minds in the Age of Enlightenment. Johann Kepler, Galileo, Galilee, Athanasius Kircher, never heard of him, Gottfried Leibniz, and of course Isaac Newton. That's Sir Isaac Newton to you. And you're basically, each one of them, of course, has different stats and different starting points, and you're basically trying to build your scientific knowledge and be the first to be the bigwig.
It's basically pure tech tree gaming, right? It's like build the tech tree.
That's exactly what it looks like.
So we got to get that out of your closet and get it over to my house. We can play this game.
It's not in my closet. It's in my hands.
Well, even better.
It was in the pub.
If you want to check out The New
Aspiring
Science,
scientists, age 10 and up.
There you go. So if you want to check out The New Science or tomorrow or any of the other great Conquistador games, head on over to cqgames.com and check out their full library there.
And that, of course, is for Conquistador Games.
You looking for news, reviews, and interviews? The D6 generation. It's groovy is as groovy does define, baby. The D6 generation. Born to game. Oh, yeah.
Well, welcome back. And now we're very excited to talk with an industry expert, Curt himself here, on a very exciting topic I'd like to call I'm Too Sexy for My Game. So this was
no musical accompaniment.
No, I don't have background music. You know, that was a fail on my part. But basically,
Too sexy for my game. Too sexy for my game. Don't sexy your dirt.
No, okay. See, it would have been much better if you had done some preparing.
Yes, it couldn't have been any worse.
That's true.
So anyway, video would have been good.
That's
nice. So basically, there was this big Kickstarter recently. Now, miniature war gamers, we're really no strangers to, scantily clad models in our miniature lines. But recently there was a Kickstarter called Kingdom Death. And it was just, the sort of what's becoming common now, board game, miniature game hybrid with tons of models. And the reason a lot of our friends have been watching the Kickstarter because it's one of those classic, oh my God, for only $100 you get a bajillion miniatures.
And cracked $2 million
made
too.
a lot of money. Now, when a Kickstarter makes that kind of money, people outside the little small world that is the miniature gaming universe and board gaming universe start to take notice, right? And they see this stuff. And so when they looked at this Kickstarter, they realized there are a lot of scantily clad women going along with this board game, to the point where a blog, which the name is sort of interesting. It's a feminist blog.
They're the only ones that can get away with a name like that.
Right. So it's the B word blog. Basically, let's call it that for some reason. The B word blog. You know, it's.
I think we're adults here. You can go ahead now.
I think if that's their chosen name, you kind of have to at least give them enough to.
All right. Well, it's bitchmagazine.org, right? And basically, the idea behind the premise from her article is, you know, there's sexism in this game. The title was Save versus Sexism, and the game is focused on sexism and her primary concerns with the...
right there, I'm finding fault with the word sexism used twice in the headline. I mean, such redundancy is just repetitive.
Yeah, and I don't make it all about her article, because it was broader than this, but basically her concern was, you know, there's all these pinup models are part of the line, and pinup posters you're going to get when you support the Kickstarter, and the women's proportions are extremely exaggerated. But not only are there women, but there's also these creatures that are in the game that are large amounts of breasts on them and things like that. There's just over-the-top craziness. Now, the game is dark horror, so there's all kinds of exaggerated, crazy stuff. It's not just, you know, female body parts everywhere, but there was a couple of these models that were really, really big, very exaggerated. And what was interesting to me about this whole thing was not only the reaction of this particular blogger to the whole thing, but then when a lot of our gamer friends started, or people in the industry started tweeting or Facebooking this particular article saying, what do you think of this? Some people got really genuinely, you know, how can our industry's better than this? We shouldn't be doing this. It's, you know, what are the parents going to say when a kid gets that game home and opens it up and sees all this stuff inside of it? And for me, it started bringing me back to like some of the video game controversies used to happen back when video games started to have heavy adult content. And there was a sort of this, you know, idea that, well, video games are for kids, so there shouldn't be adult content in video games. Board games are for families. There shouldn't be adult content in board games. And so I think there's maybe a couple questions I think we might be kind of fun to talk about today, which is one of them is it sexism to have sexy people in these games? But then the second part is, if we agree that that's okay to have some adult content in games, how should that be handled so that there's not, you know, that people don't get surprises in the box or whatever? So I don't know, what are you guys' gut reactions to all that?
Well, you know, you say you bring a good point. Video games, comic books, heck, even D&D. There's been, you know, parent outcry every time, you know, something kind of steps over the line, and that's only a risk that you take when you have something like this, which, you know, if it hadn't made $2 million, would people really be talking about it as much? Probably not. But because it is, you know, now getting a lot of attention, those are the kind of conversations that are going to happen. Is there a place for it? You know, there's an audience for anything under the sun. Is it good for the industry? I don't know. That's kind of another question. And especially when you start talking about, I think hobby gaming right now is... it's kind of undergoing a little bit of a renaissance, and the market is broadening. More people than ever are kind of getting into gaming, both from the family perspective, but also, you know, the hobby games are finding a broader audience now. Does this kind of start, you know, reversing that trend when this is clearly made for 30-year-old men who are 14 inside?
Right. That's a good point, Curt. Well, I think there's some great broad issues there I'd love to explore. But maybe before we get into the broader issues, let's talk about Kingdom Death specifically. I mean, you made a good point there, and maybe it is just because this game made so much money. But is this game going too far? I mean, let me ask you this, Curt. For example, when you were working on
and any of my great games,
all of your fantastic Smirk and Dagger games. Cutthroat Caverns, it's totally at a blank. Cutthroat Caverns has some great art in it around the various classic D&D heroes, or dungeon crawling heroes. And of course, there are female heroes in there. When you first started doing concept art for Cutthroat Caverns and working on the different female versions, was there did that ever enter anyone's mind, or did the first art come across your desk fine, or how did that come in to play, or did it come into play?
Well, I think that, they're really two different questions, and me and my company have kind of a different opinion about the whole thing. I would have a hard time publishing a game that was too over the top in terms of objectifying women or adult content, because quite honestly, a lot of my games are kind of gateway games. They're easy to get into. They're kind of broad enough so even people outside of the hobby industry can get into them and have fun. So I wouldn't do that just because it would be bad for my business. It's once you kind of go over that line, you limit your audience.
Right.
At the same time, you might grow it because some people are really attracted to that. To me, that would be a mistake. The same reason why I wouldn't have produced Wench.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just, and in that case, like, with Wench, that was something that was just for shock value. Mm. Here, with Kingdom Death, some of it is thematic, right? They're trying to create this, bizarre, twisted, nightmare dream world, and in dreams is sexual content, part of a twisted dreamverse. Sure, I mean they got monsters that are made out of testicles in here,
right?
So it's not just objectifying women. They've got all kinds of sexual content in it. But when they do objectify women, it's pretty overt. They've got a card here, white speaker Nico, and it could be a penthouse, spread.
Yeah.
To me, I wouldn't produce a game like that. Is there an audience for that? Sure. $2 million proves there's an audience for it. The other thing is, you said, well, is it going to fall into the hands of kids? Well, what are they charging for? Like, it's $100, $300. What is it?
Yeah, I think it's like 150 base or something. But the other thing.
So what kid is really going to dig into the pocket and find $150? I guess, but
right. Well, the other question too is, are kids? I mean, you look at like a Kickstarter thing. Are kids on Kickstarter backing Kickstarter? I mean, you need a credit card. You can't really back Kickstarter without an adult being involved, right? So that was sort of interesting to me too, was the idea. But then again, the premise of this, I suppose, is that this board game box is eventually going to get on a store shelf somewhere, right? I would imagine. So I guess the argument would be, well, then then Johnny can go into his local game store and see something that says Kingdom Death on it. Must be awesome, and pick it up, right? I guess is the
right. But half the stuff that's the most objectionable won't be in that box.
That's another good point, Craig. So how does that work?
There will be stuff that's objectionable in the box, but most of the stuff that's being specifically mentioned isn't in that box. So if that's the concern, I'm not entirely sure that somebody's arguing apples and apples at this point, because if it's the in-store access that they're objecting to, then they're objecting to something different. I agree with Curt. If I was making a game, I wouldn't make a game like this. If I was trying to sell a game, I wouldn't try to sell a game like this, because I would think that you were limiting your own avenues to success. But then $2 million is a pretty good argument that maybe I'm wrong.
Well, and the other thing is, some of it undoubtedly, people are attracted to the sexy figures, but there is a lot of artistry to this game as well. There's a figure, I think it's called, it's a lantern festival guy, and it's the king. Now, this particular one, I don't see right off the bat any obvious sexual content, but just beautiful artistry. The man's body and ribs are made of clasping arms, and his head is held up by hands, and so there's some really interesting dream-like vision, and these miniatures have been crafted so beautifully. It's not hard to understand why people are so attracted to the miniatures. And yes, because there are plenty of gamers out there who love to see busty women in their comic books and love to see great figures. I'm not surprised that that's a draw as well, and they're very nicely done. But it's in some cases, I think they've maybe gone just a bit too far in some of the depictions.
Yeah, the thing that I'm not offended by it. I'm just disturbed by it. The Lantern Festival that you're talking about is actually his body is supported by like a bunch of naked little babies.
Yeah. Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah, they're babies.
If you look inside his robes, it's just a column of little naked babies crawling up on top of each other.
Yeah, well, if you don't like scary babies, take a look at the Grom. Have you seen this one? Just go down. It's a giant like baby head with mouth in it. So it's a very, I mean, it's not just women. You're right, and I think the thing, but Curt, you're making a good point. Is this isn't like a half decent artist doing this. This guy who's drawing this stuff and also the sculptor is really good. This is obviously someone who's very, very talented, who has a well-known audience for his work, and so it's kind of like if you had a really well, I mean, all the master painters painted nudes, right? So and for their time, it was very risque. So in a way, it's sort of like this Kickstarter is sort of like so over the top and so adult, not just in the sexuality, but just in themes in general, and so dark. Here you get the sculptor that a lot of people like, and he's going crazy with some of it, just going wacko with this stuff, and people want it because it's one of the few times where he doesn't have to worry about the mass market, what people are going to say. It's basically a Kickstarter of people who really like his work going after it, I guess, is the only thing I can sort of surmise from it. But it also is going to appeal to a lot of different people. So I think I'm agree with both of you. This isn't a game I would buy or a game I would try to create myself. But at the same time, it doesn't bother me that someone did, if that makes sense. I don't see this as any worse than what we get out of Hollywood and as you mentioned, Curt, comic books. And when was the last time you saw a correctly proportioned woman in a superhero leotard? I mean, it doesn't happen.
Well,
either.
it goes beyond that.
Right.
It really does. And quite honestly, it didn't need to.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think they had such artistry and so many cool thematics that it's the cheesecake factor, especially as it gets to just it's more of like these submissive cues. It's the overtly sexual things that the women are doing, and that seems out of character for the rest of the game. It seems actually liberally applied for what it is, rather than actually connected to the thematic material. And I think that's really what the author of this article was really objecting to.
Right.
Yeah.
The whole element of the pinup is interesting to me, because it seems to be almost confusing even amongst the supporters of the Kickstarter. Because it seems like what you're looking at you've got these characters that are moderately sexualized that are right out of the board game. And then you've got the pinup versions, which are ludicrously sexualized, right, which theoretically, quote unquote, aren't part of the board game, but are models of the characters in the board game overtly sexualized.
Right.
So to say that they're not part of the board game is really misleading, is really it's really sophistry at its worst. Because, I mean, I can name, and wouldn't, but I could name one or two people that I know that if they were aware of this game would be playing it with the pinup versions because those are just so much cooler.
Well, sure. Yeah.
Right.
And so to say that they're not part of the game is really sort of playing with the language a little bit, I think.
Well, and really what they're part of the marketing campaign for the game.
Clearly.
They're getting the extra dollars for these extra figures and all the extra excitement and, talk value. That's what those pinup figures are for. And you can show them off at, to your friends, I guess. I've got them because I got them at Kickstarter. No one else can have them. There's the badge value to that. So, that's really what's at work here.
Right.
Right.
They're using the pinup sexual value of the characters to drive a higher, ring rather than just buy the game. Buy it with these.
Yep.
Yeah. Right.
And,
right, Craig.
And no, go ahead, Russ.
Well, I was just going to say exactly. I think you're both. I agree with you completely. I think that it's. I think in this case, I I'd like to talk a little bit about the broader topic of sex in games and does it have a place. But I think in this case, there are examples here that have gone to a point that's pretty extreme and pretty, I would say, the minority of gamers, and yet it made a lot of money. So maybe that's, if there is a disturbing message from this, because of the extreme level of sexuality, and it's just how much support it got. But the optimist in me kind of hopes that the core game, which originally didn't have some of this, made some of that money before all these stretch goals that kind of got crazy over the top kicked in. That's my that's my little happy hope.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think anyone's buying it for the game. I think everyone's buying it for the figures.
Right.
My guess is they hope that the game is good, but in the end, they really don't care because they like the figures.
Right.
And as you said, Curt, the artistry behind. I mean, if you look at the more nightmarish models, they're fantastic. They're not anything that appeals to me, but not for any sexual reason. Just it's too nightmarish. But I mean, there's skill, there's vision, there's inordinate effort going into this. And it's easy, I think, for me or for us or to anyone to say, and it's just a shame that they decided to go in the direction that they went. But I mean, I guess that's up to them, I guess.
Well, financially, it wasn't a bad decision.
No. I don't want to keep going back to that either.
No, but you're right.
I don't think money should be the final arbiter of I guess what I would say is that I don't find this classy. I like to think of myself as certainly classy, and I guess that it, I don't know. I am not offended. Really one of the few things that offends me is people who are easily offended. I'm not offended by this, but it's not something that I would choose to associate myself with in any way. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
All right. So I would agree. I think it's interesting. I think the only other thing you can say for it, in a positive angle, I think maybe is that just artists are drawn to certain things when they create art, and maybe that's just this guy's thing. But yeah, it's definitely over the top. But let's talk. So that's Kingdom Death, and I think we all agree that it's definitely way out there in terms of one of the more extreme examples of this stuff. But one of the things that got me when some of the comments started coming in on this topic was just the idea that what if kids saw this, or what if games shouldn't be this sexy? And then I started thinking to myself, well, how much of this kind of stuff can we have in games? We have a lot of games. There's a lot of great fantasy, very, very famous fantasy artists out there who have drawn covers of many a famous either D&D book or poster or whatever that have very scantily clad women on them. With extreme proportions. We see it all the time in video games. We see it all the time in movies. We see it all the time, as we said, comics. And we see it in board game art too, right? Some of the models in the original Descent, some of the models and some of the artwork in the original Descent are a little extreme. Is it okay to have that in these games? And what's the right amount? What's not the right amount?
Well, it's okay. It's a matter of taste. It's a matter of preference. It's up to the people who are creating the games and their audiences. I mean, I don't know. Part of it is part of the genre. If you go down the book aisle, even at Barnes and Noble, which is as mainstream as you can come, and you're in the fantasy section, you're going to see depictions of fantasy women like that everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of it just kind of comes along with the genre. Now that said, how much is too much, and here's the other thing, in what way are they really depicted, and how do the character come across? How are they portrayed? Are they always victims, or are they strong yet sexy women, or guys for that matter?
Right.
Are they heroic? Right. And in a lot of the depictions, they're helpless and they need saving, and at that point, it's cliche, and it's not a great portrayal of women. It's not something that again, I would be comfortable doing as a game company. Not that I haven't bought some of those, books, games, things. Sometimes it's it's either part of the genre, part of the story, part of whatever. But and for that matter, the other question is, well, what about adult content overall? Is that appropriate for the game industry? Well, probably. It probably is in many regards. So, especially, I think role-playing. Role-playing is, it's all tied to a theme. And let's say someone decides to come up with a True Blood role-playing game.
Uh-huh.
Well, to honor True Blood, it's going to have a lot of adult content.
Right.
So if you're going to honor the core material, and assuming you're all fans of the core material, then as a game developer, you've got to make sure you're delivering what that core content is. Now, there are many people who, for whatever reason, would object to True Blood overall. Okay, not a game for you. It might be hard to display on a low shelf.
Right.
That's a problem for a store.
Right. Quite
honestly, that's a problem for a game company too, because all that adult content, if it's up on the top shelf where you have to kind of put something over it, or what, you're really limiting what's already a niche audience.
Right.
So, that wouldn't make sense for me. But does it have a place? Is there a time and place for it? Is there an audience for it? Yes.
Well, that's a topic I wanted to touch on, Curt, and you kind of jumped ahead of me, but I don't want to dive in now. It's a great segue. So you mentioned a game based on, let's say, True Blood, but there's a great example of a game that Craig and I actually both really enjoy, and it's based on the TV series Spartacus. And it's the game of the same name. Now, Spartacus, the TV show, has got insane violence. It's got insane, at True Blood level, if not higher, sexual scenes and nudity. It has slavery in it, extremely adult themes.
Drugs.
Pretty much everything in it. And if you were going to make a board game about this, the only way to truly make the board game in the same vein as the show would be to do that. And they pretty much did. I mean, the game has a lot of those same themes. It doesn't have like the over-the-top, crazy, sexy women or nudity in it, but it has, extreme language. It has, sexual innuendo. It has all that stuff in there built right into the game. And it says right on the box cover, mature, audience intended.
Right.
So part of me says, look, I think,
and you can have my box of Spartacus when you pry it from my cold dead fingers.
It's a good game, but it's definitely an adult game. It's not a game I'd play with my kids, right? So I think there's a place in the industry for games with adult themes, but I think I kind of feel they should be clearly labeled, and parents know what they're getting into. I don't. It bothered me one of these comments that was made about this game was, what if a kid got it? I don't like the presumption that games are only for families and kids. Right. And therefore, if you make
company's job to keep it out of the kids' hands,
right? Because every industry's fought this. I mean, the music industry's fought it, the video industry's fought it, the video game industry's fighting it, and now it feels like to me, maybe to go back to one of your earlier points, Curt, because board games are getting so much more pervasive that this is going to be the next fight. Where the layman says, "Well, board games are Monopoly and sorry and chess. You can't put that much adult content in a board game. That's not right. What if a kid sees it?"
Well, and that's because the laymen really think about games as purely for children. Right. I would say most of the games built for the hobby industry are built for adults, including mine. And mine have no objectionable content to them, but I don't build my games for kids.
Right. Have you played Hex recently? Talk about violence in a game. I mean, my God.
Smirk is Dagger's not.
I have never played any other game that came in a nice, lovely box in a game store that actually caused blood to be shed.
Right.
You are not without sin, my friend.
Oh, no, but that's a sin I can live with.
Exactly. It was hilarious.
Smirk and Dagger's not responsible for the language uttered during Hex.
That's true. Correct. So I didn't think about the language being uttered during the game. My God, at the Adepticon game night, it's craziness.
Yeah, but do you guys agree with that? And how does the industry get the message out that, how do they safely, is it as simple as self-imposed, sort of warning labels on the boxes saying, this is intended for.
I think
you have to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's the bare minimum. I also think it's a very acceptable approach because how are you going to find fault with somebody saying literally, look, it's like McDonald's saying, look, if you get this, it's got 2,000 calories in it.
Right.
Now you can't go, McDonald's is trying to tell me stuff that it's not healthy. Oh, well, only if you have no idea what calories are.
Yeah, you see Blu-ray DVDs with the unrated director's cut.
Right.
Parents know exactly what to expect, and they know they're not going to have their kids in front of the screen.
Right, and I think there is a good faith effort that needs to be maintained in the industry, and I wouldn't want to see some government board to be created to do it, simply because I think and any industry should be able to do it on their own, and then once if it's I don't know, now I'm like just peddling. I have no idea. The water's deep here, Russ.
You're doing fine. Keep swimming. Just keep swimming. Head for the life preserver.
But now Lillian, in her article that started this whole thing off, would probably have another take on that, which is, again, what is adult content, and what's appropriate and what's less appropriate. To me, you raised Spartacus. Now Spartacus is built on a popular show, and quite honestly, if you take a look at cable shows overall, whether it's True Blood or any of those shows, the bar is kind of getting raised on entertainment overall. There's a lot more really good adult themed entertainment out there, and it's great. It's nicely acted. It's got great writing. It's compelling, and yeah, there's adult content to it. I think that's probably okay. So a Spartacus game that touches on all those things is different than a game that its adult content is simply objectifying women to make a sale.
That's a good point.
And I think that's what she was really kind of saying, and I kind of agree with her on that.
Well, I agree. Well, let's talk about that a little bit. So are there types of adult content? I think all three of us would sit around and enjoy a game of Spartacus, right?
Yep.
Yet there are probably other games that would make us less comfortable. It sounds like that for all three of us, Kingdom Death would make me uncomfortable. I would, if I was in a game store, I can't imagine sitting in the back of my friendly professional gaming store, Miri Games, with Kingdom Death spread out. I wouldn't have a problem with Mansions of Madness. Mansions of Madness, horror game, dark, scary stuff there. But in Mansions of Madness, the ladies are all fully clothed. They don't look, it just everything looks sort of like, your classic horror game. Whereas this, which is sort of, another person's take on some sort of variant on people in a scary environment getting scared by crazy dream creatures. Now all of a sudden, I would be embarrassed if someone see me playing that game, right? It would
right. It's the cringe factor of who walks in. Who would you be comfortable watching you play this game? If your mom walks in, right? Is that a problem? Yeah, right. I don't really need to see that.
Right, yeah.
And
she doesn't need to see the testicle creature.
Right. Well, it goes to a whole new level. And that's the thing. I think, if, because part of this too, we've been focusing on the women so much, but the men are, the men aren't walking around looking like scrawny little geeks. They're all like Arnold Schwarzenegger with their shirts off, right? In most of these games also. So it's not like
the guy. Again, that's part of the genre.
It's hyper idealized, human form in both sides of the equation, right?
Yeah.
But as a parent of two daughters, I do look very carefully at the miniature games that now come into my house. I never went after this kind of stuff, but at the same time, I now, even some of the miniature games I used to more really enjoy, I have to be careful about around them now. Like, for example, there are parts of Malifaux I would not be comfortable with my daughters seeing or emulating. Right?
Yeah.
Their proportions are better, but not a lot better than some of these pinups. Some of their stuff's just as bad. There are some other games as well that are like that. Even 40K has elements of it too. So you got to kind of figure out where you're going to draw the line. A recent example. Here's a good example of a game where I did like the mechanics. I loved some of the models, but then they had a whole line. Relic Knights. Relic Knights was a fantastic Kickstarter. Did very, very well. Had lots of models in it, and it was very anime themed. And most of it was, about half of it was like what you'd expect: mecha and anime and big swords and the whole thing. But then there was this other half that was also like the over-the-top Japanese, schoolgirl anime stuff going on with, they all had little cute bunnies my girls would love, but then the girl standing next to the bunny was wearing a bikini top and not much else,
Yeah.
And so that I literally walked away from that Kickstarter that I would have supported just because I know even I could buy that faction and only play the faction that was not scantily clad. But when I go to a tournament or something, there's going to be the guy there with the bunny rabbit girls. I'm going to be like, oh, geez, bud, you have to play those. So it's like, I definitely, it definitely impacts me and my buying decisions and what I'm comfortable with. How, and as a parent, how do I teach my girls, show them the fun parts of the hobby, but know where to draw the line and not and where to and kind of keep them on their focus of not only because they're kids not seeing this stuff, but also because they're women or they're going to be women, and having them not have their attitudes about themselves change based on these weird scenes,
right? Or wives or girlfriends or anybody else.
Right. But that also requires a certain amount, like if you like board games and miniature games and your girls are coming up to like board games and miniature games, and so you have a much more you have a much greater knowledge base. What if you're Joe Schmo football fan parent that doesn't know anything beyond Sorry, the board game that you played once with your kid 5 years ago, and your daughter went over to Wakeland's house and saw War Machine, and now all of a sudden you're like, I don't know what that is. You know what I mean? So I don't know. There's a level of like parents need to, and I think this is just goes with the territory and its work, and that's why a lot of people don't do it, and that's when you get comments like kids will see this, is that a parent needs to get involved and needs to do that research and take that journey with the kid to a certain extent to see what you're already knowing, Russ. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and I think it's like video games, right? I think parents have the same problem with video games
and movies and music. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many people have no idea what's going through those headphones into the kid's head.
Yeah,
have no idea what they're listening to, and some of it is really horrific. And sometimes I'll ask a kid, "Hey, can I listen to what you're listening to, just out of curiosity?" And they'll be like, "Sure," and I'll listen to it, and I'm like, "Oh my God, your parents know? Oh yeah, they bought me, the credits that I downloaded it with." So do they know what it is? No. Like, oh, so they've never listened, they never ask, and these are like 13, 14-year-old kids.
Yeah,
and I mean, as a teacher, I think we get reinforced with this through our experiences, but there's a level of active parenting that needs to be done.
Yeah.
That cannot be substituted with, you have to put labels on your games and not create stuff that's like this. Because there's going to be stuff like this out there, whether it's the music or the movies or the books or the videos or whatever it is, they're going to encounter stuff like this, and you need to help them position it in the world so that it's not like, oh my God, I don't look like that, so I'm a worse person kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's a huge element of anything that's questionable like this with content where it intersects with kids.
Yeah. And here's the thing. So social mores change all the time.
Right.
If you put any of the most popular TV shows on the air in the 60s and 70s, people would have gotten fired or worse.
Right.
So it's tough to put out any mandate that says, hey, you can't do that. That's just not appropriate, because that's how boundaries kind of get bent and broadened. And who would have thought that South Park would even get on TV?
Right.
So it's really hard to. Part of it's kind of the free speech, right? It's is there a market? Is that something that you want to represent? Your company, and you're always going to find an audience for all kinds of things. And some things are always going to be a problem for some people. But in the end, it's a matter of parenting. I think there should be some, if you'd have a clearly adult, content and you're pushing the envelope, label your box, don't be a jerk.
Right.
But I wouldn't say you can't publish it or you should feel bad for doing so. It's just, you're building it for a certain audience. Fine. Just make sure it stays with the audience.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's great. In my idealized world, I think I agree with you 100%, Curt. I think that there should be no restriction on what people can make, just like in any other industry. You can make whatever you want, but if people respect you less for doing it later, don't be surprised. Right.
Well,
Right.
And then
that's a key, and that again comes in from where I'm talking with kids. The whole like freedom of speech, absolutely, but what you have to understand is that it's not freedom from consequence.
Right.
Correct.
So you can do whatever you want, and I think you should be able to do whatever you want, but be an adult about it. Like Curt says, label your games and understand that it's going to position you.
Right.
Kingdom Death is now positioned in my head.
Right.
I don't want to play it. I don't want to be seen playing it for fear other people who share my feelings will see me. I mean, I will if it comes up and we want,
And to be clear, it's not because of bloggers' opinions of the game or anything else. It's because you looked at the content and you've made a decision about what comes in the box.
Exactly.
So it's the responsibility of the game creator, and that's okay. But back to your point, it's not. He's free to do what he wants, and we're free to say what we want about it.
Right.
My only other bit in my idealized world is that we mentioned that people in the industry get it, right? You and I get it, and Curt gets it because we're in the industry. We talk about it. We play enough of these things. The other person that's there, and I don't want to put any more weight on these guys' shoulders, but the store owners, you go into Myriad Games, right, is a great example, but a lot of other great stores out there, you go in there, and they do guide you. They'll take you. I'm looking for a game for my grandmother can play. Oh, right over here, sir. Here it is. Or I'm looking for a game for my 10-year-old daughter. They'll get you to the right spot, and good stores will do that. But maybe it's getting to the point now where stores you think about, kind of like comic books. I'm not saying a room behind a curtain, but most comic stores sell more than comics, if you get my meaning. But anyway, if you they maybe just divide an area and have the more adult games in one section, and they usually have an area for young kids separated out or family games. But after that, there's not much difference between games that a 12-year-old will handle. That those are all right next to each other. Mansions of Madness, which is not in any way a risque game, but it's a pretty dark game. Is right there, next to Pengaloo in the whole Fantasy Flight section. So maybe it's time to start spreading that stuff out a little bit and make it a little wider. I don't know, but I just kind of feel like that's another area we can, as an industry, can look at it to make sure, because one of the original points, what scares me is it's very exciting right now how much great press board games are getting. In the mainstream media, Barnes & Noble's carrying games now. You're seeing them in Target. I think this is all a great thing for us who like the hobby because it means you get more games. For you, like publishers like Curt, because now you got bigger media, bigger outlets. But it's also, if all it takes is a couple of bad, events or whatever to suddenly, have places banning it because there's Christian protests out front or something because it's
we don't need a mazes and monsters moment for
right exactly.
Right. You don't need the Comics Council to come in. You don't need all the different things which were reactions to the worst of the worst at the time that created public outcry for people who would never have read comics or played games or watched the movie but saw this one thing and mounted a campaign against it.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're right, and that's not good for the industry, or the players or anyone, because that's where things get curtailed, and it's just bad. So.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So there you have it. Any final thoughts on this? I think we're all basically saying make whatever you want, but label it.
What? There you go. What do you think you have Kickstarter responsibility here? Do you feel that Kickstarter should have some sort of, if Kickstarter put a labeling element to their, that would be sort of, self-regulating, I would imagine.
I don't think it's Kickstarter's responsibility.
I think it's the person kickstarting responsibility.
I do too.
If you look at this Kickstarter, for example, Kingdom Death, right?
Yeah.
The beginning opening paragraph is it's a cooperative board game set in a nightmare horror world. Fight for your life, scavenge, craft, and band together to survive. That could be the description of Mansions of Madness, or indeed even Descent almost, except for the horror part.
True. Yeah.
Right? So that doesn't tell you anything about the adult nature of the content of this game. The only time you figure out its adult nature is when you get to the pictures, and at that point, it's really too late. You know what I mean? So
clearly, yeah.
If you're gonna do that, I think either. Now, I don't know, to be honest, I only really I've kickstarted a couple things outside the gaming industry, but it's mostly like, a movie about space exploration, very, very broad stuff. Yeah. But I don't know if Kickstarter does have categories for this kind of stuff for younger, or if they have a rule where you can't even, obviously anybody can look at Kickstarter, but I don't know if they have any rules about whether or not you can go to certain projects or back a project under a certain age. I'm guessing the the 13 age limit is probably in place here, but even that's probably young for some of this stuff. But I think if you're starting Kickstarter, I think you're responsible to upfront say basically, this game is not for families, or is not intended for younger players, or whatever you want to say that you think would get across to parents that, because a parent's going to come here if Johnny says, "Hey, Mom, I really want this new board game," right? And they go to and can you back it for me? I have some money from Grandma from Christmas, and they go to the top and they just say, "Oh, here's where I click the back button, okay," and they don't scroll down to the bottom and see all the booster, all the stretch goals. They don't.
Well, here's the thing. Well, then shame on that parent. Yeah. That's ridiculous. I would never buy something with off the internet without looking down the page. So
right. So so we're saying we don't need that.
Well, no, I think it'd be nice if they had put adult content labeling on here. I agree with you on that. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
I don't know that Kickstarter themselves has to start monitoring. That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it also opens up a whole, once you say that you're going to have to do it, then you have to hire people to actually be doing it. Yeah. And then you're going to have to say, well, what are we going to do to people who don't do it? Yeah. It's like a whole nightmare snowball scenario if it goes in that direction. But at the same time, and this goes with the whole freedom of speech isn't free of consequences. If you go on that article that we've been talking about, and you go down and listen and read some of the
comments,
the visceral, hate-filled comments that people threw right back at her.
Oh yeah,
and the people are like, "I've got every one of the boobs they carved, and it's coming to my house, and I'm proud of it." That's great, but once again, now I know more than I want to know about you.
Right.
Yeah.
It's there are consequences, and I think that the more we as an industry kind of take it upon ourselves, A, the better we look at large, and B, the less we have to worry about this particular article going visceral, and the next thing it's on the floor of the Senate, and the next thing we're looking at some sort of official federal board that's going to be looking at every game or every Kickstarter or whatever.
Right. Yep. But you know what?
What?
Every one of my games would pass through that filter.
Absolutely.
There you go.
So I'd be fine. The problem is, though, that it does chip away at what is right now kind of a growing and intriguing space for more people who hadn't really thought about hobby gaming before. Mm-hmm. And as apps are bringing a lot of people in. Will Wheaton's show is doing it. There's a lot of influx of new kind of people into the hobby, and yeah, I'd hate to see anything upset that.
Well, I wanted to talk about. I think that's a great point because I wanted to talk a little bit about the slippery slope before we ended, which is I know everybody brings it up all the time, but there's games like Spartacus, which if you started having all these rules about adult games and all that stuff, all of a sudden it's like, well, where do you draw the line?
Right.
You have something that's obviously maybe more clear like Kingdom Death, but less clear like Spartacus. And then you have even things like that. What's that quick to play RPG that Will Wheaton reviewed the other day? I can't remember the name of it. It's but there's some very light, quick, adult humored RPGs now. But they're not. I don't mean like sex, but just like a lot of that like innuendo kind of thing. And they're very well received, and people like them a lot, and they're fun. And it's and for the intended audience, some adults having cocktails, playing some silly games, it makes sense, right? And that's why I think we have to let this. We have to be accepting of all this stuff. It's just a matter of. I think we're all saying the same thing now. It needs to be labeled properly, whether it's the manufacturer doing it, and if they don't do it, then the responsibility is going to fall downhill to eventually the parent. And good parents will, of course, always watch this stuff, but it helps them to give many more tools they can get, right?
Well, speaking of. You've got the Cards Against Humanity, right? Which is the apples to apples version for like super hyper adult scenarios, and the box is nothing but black. It has no art on it. It says Cards Against Humanity, a party game for horrible people.
Right.
The label says 17 plus.
And that's pretty well themed and labeled, so it's hard to mistake exactly what the game is.
Right. I was just curious because it came up in conversation last night, and I remember somebody saying, "Oh, it's horrible. The things on it are horrible." So as we were talking, I was like, "How are they labeling?" And they're labeling it like it's some sort of pornography. as a joke, I think. But
Yeah.
but still. And then another thing that I was thinking of as we were talking about this is from the role playing game perspective with FFG, you now have the Black Crusade, which means your characters are all evil people,
Right.
and that can do really horrific things. And I'm writing a lot of that stuff. And so I was like, now why does that not seem? And it's because they're being very careful directing us, and we're being very careful following the directions, that it's all very sort of abstract and vague and I mean, which actually goes right along with almost all GW stuff. GW 40K and fantasy are both storylines that take place in very dark places, but there's actually a list of things you'll never see in Games Workshop, including, rape or anything like that. I mean, you'll never see innocents that are like brutally victimized in a graphic manner and things like that. And so I think, even Russ, when you were saying earlier that role-playing games, or actually Curt said it also, with the True Blood, I think there are ways that you can do it and stay on one side of the line or the other, I guess, without naming the line.
They're clearly painting it on the road.
Exactly.
All right, good. Well, I think that was a pretty good discussion. Hopefully, got everybody thinking there, and I think we can say one thing about the Kingdom Death sculptor. Say he can.
Say one thing for Kingdom Death.
Say he can sculpt the breast.
Say he can sculpt the breast.
He's not bad with a tush either.
He's not.
Oh, Russ, you
on that wildly inappropriate note, I think.
Oh, God. Oh, bye-bye.
The D6 Generation Podcast. All of the mysteries of gamer culture revealed. The D6 Generation. Born to game.
Okay, and our friends at War Games Soldiers and Strategy Magazine, making the coolest looking magazines with miniatures on them anywhere. Let's be honest, they look fantastic. It's like a scene from a movie on every cover. It is so awesome. A great magazine that covers great themes, great historical stuff, fantastic painting, and just dioramas in their books. Great articles from all kinds of folks in the industry.
It's got all kinds of course, we're talking about War Games, Soldiers, and Strategy. Mm-hmm. Don't forget, it's got gaming theory stuff in there. It's got all kinds of missions that are generic enough that you can play them with all kinds of different gaming systems. It actually looks at the gaming systems. One of my favorite features is that it reviews a whole slew of, one might say, an exhausting sample of new historical miniatures every month.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so it's or every other month. And so what you're looking at is literally the 1-for-1 size of all of these different models. So you can see all the detail. They're very, very cool. Of course, they've got Rick Priestley doing a regular column. They've got other luminaries. It is all of, and if you're not careful, you might learn something.
A little bit of history in there. Just going to jump out at you. And that is WSSmagazine.com. Make sure you put in the code. What code is that, Craig?
The code there would, of course, be D6G.
Mm-hmm. And you'll get 15% off anything you order from their website. A subscription, a magazine, whatever you want to get. Check out WSSmagazine.com.
This is Total Fangirl. Regular Jane most days, total fangirl when the moment strikes. Han shot first. Starbuck is a guy, and Lestat, now there's a vampire. Hey everyone, this is Nicole, your Total Fangirl. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicole Wakeland and check out my blog, TotalFangirl.com. This week's shout out, I don't have who it's from, I just have who it's for. It's to Kim, who tolerates my OmniGamer hobby. 119 was her badge number as a Berkeley police officer, so I asked Nicole to say hey on show 119. So Kim, hey! All right, this episode, I'm going to talk about a game the guys talked about. They actually talked about Sedition Wars, and they gave it a good review, and they talked about their point of view. But I have a different point of view, because I'm not a hardcore miniature war gamer. I've played miniature war games. I know how they work and I enjoy them, but I'm not that first and foremost. I'm more board gamer in terms of the games that I like. So I may have had a little bit of a different opinion of the game. All in all, I loved it. I thought it was great and it was a lot of fun. Beating Russ not once, but twice may have had something to do with that. Maybe not. But it was a fun game, and once you get the hang of it, it is pretty straightforward, and it's not complex in the number of turns and how you move and that sort of thing. The only thing that I did find a little bit distressing about the game is it's very much a miniature war game board game. If you don't know how to play miniature war games, if all the lingo that you guys throw out there in a typical game doesn't make sense, this game can boggle your mind a little bit. I found myself having to reference the cards a little bit more than I would have liked, and really would have liked to have had some kind of handy, quick reference sheet. Another thing, and maybe I should blame Russ for this particular problem, but the models, although they look fantastic, they're absolutely beautiful models. Once you put them together, they look gorgeous. And then he painted them, and he had a couple little accents here and there, so they look different. But the models aren't strikingly different from each other. And when you have all these cards in front of you, I had 3 cards and I have the 3 models. I was forever looking back to say, okay, which guy is that? He's this one. It was a little bit hard to keep track of which of my models were which cards in the game. So it kind of threw me out of things for a little bit because I had to keep looking back at that. The zombie guys, on the other hand, all look very different, and it was pretty easy to tell them apart. So I don't know, maybe when Russ paints them up, he should have painted them with something to differentiate the guy with 1 weapon from the guy with 2 weapons from the guy with 3 weapons, so it'd be a little easier at first glance to know who I was moving. I did love the zombie thing. I like zombie shows and zombie movies and zombie comics. So that was the thing that made me say, okay, Russ, I'll play this with you. Because it's space zombies. So, the only thing cooler than real zombies would be space zombies. And I love that. I loved how they worked too. You felt like you were in the middle of a little zombie adventure. Things I didn't know that kind of almost burned me. That I didn't realize if I stopped next to a marker for a dead body that they could get infected and poof, rise up and turn me into a zombie without me being able to do anything. I had that happen to one character, and she got to right where she wanted to be and then promptly turned into a zombie at the absolute worst possible moment when I would have won the game. Of course, I still won anyway because, I'm just that good a player. But I would have won a turn sooner had she not become a zombie. I really like the components in the game. Like I said, the minis are absolutely beautiful. There are a lot of pieces in this game. Some of them I know Russ got because they were Kickstarter things that he got a little extra that weren't necessarily what everybody would get in the box. But the clear dice that had the strain and the Vanguard symbols on it were very neat, and they made it feel a little bit kicked up and a little bit snazzier. My only issue with the pieces was that it didn't hold up well. I think Russ mentioned that we have a serious board warping issue. And also there's these little tokens, you sort of little pieces that you snap to the bottom of the bases to indicate when someone's infected. And they wouldn't stay to the bottoms of the bases. So every time I picked it up, I was constantly dropping these things on the board, and they were hitting my other models and messing me up. So I wasn't too keen on that. But as far as the story, this game has a really good story. It was one of the things I liked about Zombicide is that there's a story. Like, you feel like you're trying to flee zombies. You feel like you're having to make those decisions. Do I leave this guy behind? Do I just throw him to the wolves because he's already infected and just let him go now, and that'll let me and the rest of my team escape? Or do I, try to be the hero and drag him with me, even though I know he's going to be turned into a zombie in the end? This game has that same sort of feel to it. So from that point of view, it was great. So Sedition Wars, definitely recommend it. Love it. But if you're going to play with someone who is not a miniature war gamer, you better be prepared to slow it down a little bit, take your time with it, and explain to them what's going on, or their head is going to spin trying to figure out the rules. I wrote up my more in-depth review on what I thought about the game over at Nerd Approved, and you can find that post if you head over to nerdapproved.com. But mostly what I liked was cool space zombies, and I beat Russ not once, but twice.
And, we talk about games a lot because this is a gaming podcast. And if you're talking about games, it is indeed a gaming podcast. And if you're talking about games, of course, you're going to talk about the people who make the games, the people who shape the games, the people who craft the games. And the new up-and-coming powerhouse in game design and game promotion, of course, is Game Salute.
Yeah, Game Salute does a fantastic job. They make sure they publish the awesome tabletop games through their Powered by Games Loop program, and they make sure that they're supporting independent publishers, stores, and everyone in the industry that needs the support to get these games out to you. They go to studio designers and they help them take their idea from an idea that maybe they play tested it, they got a good idea, but how do you get that idea to the people? Even with Kickstarter helping getting that funding easier, it's still hard to actually deliver and get it out there and not make those mistakes. Do we make our Kickstarter too complicated? Do we offer too many options and now we can't deliver them all? Do we make our stretch goals too big? Do we factor in shipping properly? What about European orders? Are we going to be able to cover that? Are we going to lose our shirts even though we made several $1,000s on Kickstarter? Is it going to cover our costs? GameSuit helps the guys to make sure they take that experience, they make sure you have it to get it out there. GameSuit does a fantastic job with that. And if you want to learn all about that stuff, as well as see a great store locator to find all the stores that carry GameSalute products, head on over to gamesalute.com and check that out. Oh, they're all excited about Formula E. It's elephant racing, Craig.
It has, and you know what? I happen to know that there are elephants in that elephant
Finally,
game.
a game with an elephant on the cover that actually is in the box, too.
That's right.
Check it out, gamesalute.com.
You in the market for deeper D6G intel? There's only one place to go for your contact in the off weeks. What you seek is located somewhere in the lost chapters. Go to the D6generation.com for further instructions.
Hey, welcome back. And now we are super excited to have Colin McAllister with us from Lone Wolf Development. And he's here to talk about something that we've been mentioning for quite some time now, the RealmWorks software, which has now gone Kickstarter. Colin, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Craig, how's it going?
Excellent. And of course, Curt, we've still got Curt.
Hey there.
So RealmWorks, of course, is software that helps game masters and players also run their campaign, right? And Curt, you've been involved in quite a few RPGs, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there we go. So Craig and I have seen RealmWorks. We saw some of their early beta stuff on it. We've had it demoed to us very thoroughly at Gen Cons past. Curt's coming at it as sort of the everyman GM guy. So Colin, why don't you start off by giving us sort of the high level elevator pitch? What is RealmWorks at a very broad definition?
So RealmWorks is a campaign management tool for tabletop role-playing games. It's game system neutral, so it's not tied to any specific game. We don't implement any of the rules of the game. All we do is let you outline your world in RealmWorks and hopefully make it easier for you to GM that world. We've at Lone Wolf we've been GMing for years, and we've played a bunch of games. We've run a bunch of games. We've encountered a bunch of problems that we think will be helped or solved by RealmWorks. Problems like needing to ask questions about stuff that happened a few games ago, especially if you're using multiple different sources. Like, let's say that you've got a campaign that's set in the Pathfinder world, and you're using maybe some third-party adventure, and then you have your own notes, and a player has a question. Hey, this thing happened a couple of weeks ago. Can you tell me more about it or refresh my memory? You have to look through your own notes. You have to look through the third-party adventure. You have to look at the Pathfinder stuff, as well as any of the campaign setting supplements that you have. So you have to look through all those different things to find out what they want to know. Another problem is we've had a campaign that's been going on for over 10 years now, and so it's kind of inevitable that over that time it's been hard to keep track of everything that's going on. And so that's another thing we want to fix. We want to make it easier for players to keep up with what's going on in the game, and offload the GM from having to distribute all that knowledge through handouts or anything else. We want to make that as easy as possible. Pull players more into the setting by letting them access it outside of play as well as during play. Other issues that RealmWorks can solve: if you've got a map or something that you've designed of a city or a dungeon or a region or a country, how do you keep track of which parts the players have explored, or which pieces on the map represent interesting things or encounters, and how do you show all that to the players? We let you keep track of what's where, keep track of what the players know about, and even show that to the players on a monitor, so that they can see, so that rather than having to draw their own version or you having to draw a second map, they can see exactly what their characters know about. And then there's Let me start again. And then there is, now that everything's on the internet, everything's online, role-playing games are kind of catching up with that. We want to make it as easy as possible to share stuff that you've made. If you've spent a long time putting together an adventure or an encounter or a location or an NPC, we want you to be able to share that with other people so that they can use that in their games, and for you to use other people's stuff. So let's say that you're looking for an inn to drop in to your game for the players to stay at for a night. Instead of spending some time putting together that inn and coming up with some details for it, it'd be great if you could just go into some sort of library and find some inns and then pick one to use, so that that content is there for you.
Right.
And so that you can use it in your game and have a richer, fuller game without you having to put together put together all this stuff. And it's important when you do that the inn isn't just its own thing, but that it also integrates completely with your setting as well.
Sure.
So we've got all these different issues that we're trying to solve, and RealmWorks is what we think is going to solve all those, and just make it easier for people to GM in general, as well as easier to start games, run games, play games, easier to do all that stuff.
Well, there's a lot in that. So let's maybe we can dig in a little deeper in certain areas. I'm really curious. I know Craig and I have seen it before, obviously, but
we both played with it,
right? We both played with it, and I was really. I know Craig was too, but I was really impressed with how easy it was to sort of just jump in and start creating my world and have it just sort of start linking things together and synchronizing it. And there's some really interesting behind the scenes sort of data management and object relationship stuff, not to get too techie, going on in the background there. That's really fascinating to me. And I guess that's because the biggest question, and it was funny because this opportunity is really interesting, Colin. I'm really excited you came on the show right now because, your Kickstarter just went live. And literally, our little game group emails started popping on. Hey, did you see Lone Wolf's Kickstarter and RealmWorks? And then some people started saying, they started asking questions like, what's different about this, that? So I figured, why not ask you some of these questions? So the very first question someone asked, and I bet this is going through the minds of a lot of people who are looking at your Kickstarter, is what makes this different than using like a wiki style tool, like maybe Obsidian Portal or something? Or what differentiates RealmWorks from just sort of, a giant wiki, if you will, of your campaign system, of making a wiki of your campaign system?
Sure. So there are a few things that do that. One of the really nice things about RealmWorks is that as you're entering all your content, so let's say that you're entering details for a city, and then you go in and enter, a mayor of that city, and then you go in and enter a shop in that city, or a quadrant of that city, or a quarter of that city. As you refer to other things in each description, RealmWorks will automatically link those things together. So if you have a mayor, and then you have the parliament, and then you have some other place that the mayor often hangs out, instead of having to manually put all those links in, RealmWorks will look through what you entered and say, hey, you mentioned the mayor's name here, so I'm going to record that this is a link to the mayor.
Right.
And that way you can, so that's without any effort, you can easily build up what we call a link web of how everything is related in your game. So how people, places, and it all happens automatically without you having to do anything. We even support aliases so that you can keep track of how different things are known by different people, and RealmWorks will handle all that as well. We also support full text formatting, just like a word processor. Mm-hmm. So you can style stuff and make it look good for yourself and then for any players that you share it with. And then one of the really awesome things about RealmWorks is that it's not just about text. We let you add images, maps, stat blocks, Hero Lab portfolios, even audio and video is all integrated within RealmWorks. Mm-hmm. So you can have a Hero Lab portfolio as part of an NPC's record, and click on that, and RealmWorks will open it up in Hero Lab. Mm-hmm. It'll let you open it. It'll let you edit the character, make changes, and save that back into RealmWorks.
Oh, cool.
If you have a map there, you can track which parts of the map the players haven't seen. We call that our Fog of World system. Mm-hmm. You can have points of interest on the map that you can set with pins, and you can so you can link the bits of the map to different bits in your database. So it's much more comprehensive than just a simple wiki.
And that's one of the things I thought was really interesting, and this is shown on your video on the Kickstarter. The Folga world is pretty neat in that you've got your adventure map, and you're basically kind of taking your cursor and erasing places as the adventurers go there, so they can only really see parts of the map that you've said, yes, you've discovered this area, and you kind of wipe it away, and now when they look at it, they just see those portions. Everything else is masked out.
Exactly. If you've ever played real-time strategy games on the computer, like StarCraft or Warcraft 2 back in the day, you know that when you start, you only see like this one corner of the map, and as you branch out, you explore the map, and it gets uncovered. And so we've tried to do exactly that, where you can control exactly what the players see, and so you've only got this one map that you're working from, which has built into it, it has all of the points of interest, so secret doors, room references, encounter references. It has what the players haven't discovered of those references. So, okay, maybe the players have found this room, and they've seen the room, and you can now make that room's content available to them, but they haven't found the secret door in that room. And so that part of the secret door will not be visible, even though the point for the secret door won't be visible, even though they found the rest of the room. And it also has a record of which parts of the map the players can see or not. So our kind of ideal situation for this is what we call the player view, where a second monitor where you can show the players exactly which parts of the map that they've explored as they explore them. So as they go into a new room, you can uncover that on the map and let them see it. As they uncover a piece of treasure in that room, for example, you can, if you have a picture of that, you can pop that up on screen to show them exactly what they found. Or if they see an NPC, you can pop up details of him or anything like that.
And by the same token, when those details pop up, for the DM, I thought it was interesting too that you can keep track of what bits of information they've actually learned about him and what they haven't learned about him yet, and that's clickable too.
Right, you can keep track of the information for basically for any topic in as much granularity as you want. So if you have a bunch of different rumors, for example, about a character, you can have those all set up differently, and so you can track the specific ones the players haven't found. Or if you have a paragraph of general background, maybe the players just know all of that paragraph, so you can mark that as revealed.
And I use this feature a lot when I was experimenting with this with Mouse Guard, because it's great and it's so intuitive when you write your character up. You just basically break it out with paragraphs. So you're like, Tom Bob is a shopkeeper. That's one bit of information, and then so maybe the players know that now. And then he also is good at martial arts, but they don't know that yet. Oh, now they know that. Well, it turns out he's an assassin, and you can just list it down, and then he's a member of this particular assassin's guild, and you just keep going. And then you glance at your character and realize, well, they know he's a shopkeeper, they know where he lives, they don't know he's an assassin yet. Oh, that's right. But back on last week, they found out that he is good at martial arts because they saw him fight that bugbear or whatever. And isn't it also the time they discover stuff? Isn't it time logged so that you can say, what did they find out last week or last month?
That's right. We have what we call the reveal history, where you can look back over a certain amount of time, or you can even say, over the last game. And Realmworks will show you what information got revealed and in what order and on what date and time. So you can. That's one of the cool things for doing recaps, for example. Mm-hmm. At the start of every of an RPG session, you can say, okay, what did we discover last time? And the reveal history in Realmworks will be a list of all of the stuff that your party found out over the last game session. So especially if you're playing a more plot-heavy game, mm-hmm. that makes it really helpful to going back. Wait, what did we discover about this guy? Oh, here are the 3 bits of information that we now know about him that we didn't know the last time. Right. We also have, as well as that, we have a general timeline where you can set up, whenever you create events or anything like that in Realmworks, you can set a date for that. And so you can also set up events on that timeline and show people exactly what happened and in which order to help them get to grips with what's been happening during their game, or even what's been happening in the history or the background of your campaign.
Right. I think that's really fascinating. And I think, again, what's really cool about all that is you don't have to think about that or make a note someplace in the system that says, okay, they discovered this on 8/12 or whatever. It just, when you click that little icon that says the players now know this, it tracks all that for you in the background, just like the the links, and I want to back up a little bit about the links too, because I think when Craig and I were in the early beta and playing around with this, really the thing that I think blew me away, and I think Craig it did for you too, was how easily it just interlinked everything. So it's not like, and I want to make this clear, it's not like when you're in there typing in something and you're saying, okay, I want to put in that, I'm going to write a history about a magic sword. So I write this magic sword object up, and then you say, okay, I'm going to put this in this tavern in a chest. So I do that. Well, when I go to the tavern and say, and I'm just typing in the tavern, there's a chest in the corner, and in that chest is the Sword of Omens, right? And I've already made up the Sword of Omens. Now, when I go to the tavern, it links to the Sword of Omens. And if I look at the Sword of Omens, it shows me it's in the tavern. And if I go to the city knows this tavern is there, and the Sword of Omens is in there. And I never sat down and said, okay, now where is the Sword of Omens? Oh, it's in this city, it just figures it all out. Is that what you found, Craig?
I thought it was. I'm the technological moron around here, and it was driving me crazy. And I was like, "Colin, I can't make it work." And it was awesome because he was like, "Well, are you making sure that you spelled the barbarian's name the same?" And I was like, "Oh no, actually, I didn't spell it." As long as you're spelling these things the same, it was really amazing to me that it was so easy to follow, not only to make these links because it's doing it for you, but then to follow them. And it was almost like web surfing at that point, because then you're like, ooh, and then it went here, and then it went there, and then it went over there, and then this guy knows about it and this guy doesn't. It was so amazing to me. I went through, and actually I was beta while I was doing the beta, I was also writing an entire solar system for Fantasy Flight Games. And just out of curiosity, I did the entire solar system that I wrote up for Fantasy Flight Games with all of the different planets and all the different characters. And it was amazing because I was just filling in the cool details, and it was doing all of that background linking of all the objects and everything for me. So that once I was done, I was like, oh, wait a minute. If I went to this planet, oh, look, there are all the people. If I talk to this guy, oh, look, there's all the things he knows. It was absolutely amazing, and it was so fun and so fast. I would say what this product has, or what I noticed in the beta, what it has in common with all of the other products, because it's totally new, it's totally different. It's not Army Builder, it's not Hero Lab, but what it has in common with those is that it's just fun to use it, and it gets all that work out of the way. And I was just super excited to just put in new stuff and put in new details. And the way that it tracked all of the plot stuff and all of the different elements of that solar system that I did, it opened a whole world to me. Like, you could literally use this writing a novel, Curt, and you could have it all planned out so that, you could keep track of everything going on. I think this is going to be huge, not just for role players, but I think it's going to find applications elsewhere also. It's so friendly to use and so useful.
That's interesting.
One of the really critical things that we're trying to make sure happens is that entering stuff becomes, like you said, Craig, as easy and as fun as possible. Yeah. Because it's the last game that I game that I GM'd before I could use Realmworks for it. I was just taking everything down in a word processor.
Yep.
And that worked great for about 2 pages. And then after that, it became just, even with just a single adventure with the players, whenever I wanted to find anything or refer back to anything, it was just difficult to find stuff. Not impossible, but it was, when I wanted to change something or look something up, it was this extra, 30 to 60 seconds to find the information that I knew was there somewhere, but that I didn't have the tools to access. And that's just after one adventure. And so I can only imagine what it would be like after 5 or 6, or playing in a campaign for a year or so. And so Realmworks is trying to make it as easy as possible to keep everything organized and to let you go from one place to the next, to the next, to the next, and find those links without you having to do the extra work of making them or remembering where stuff is.
Yeah, the other thing too, I think the links that's really fascinating is, sure, they work the obvious way, is when you're reading that the sword is in the chest, the sword is hyperlinked, so you can click it and you find more details about the sword. What's also cool about it is you can then look at your links from different ways. Like you can look at them from the perspective of the plot. So where are things going to fall in my plot line? Or you can look at it from the perspective of the map. If you link it all together to the map, like where are all the magic items currently in my world on the map? Or you can look at, so what are some of the different ways you can sort of look at your, now once you've got some decent stuff typed in there, what are some of the ways you can sort of look and find things in Realmworks?
There are a bunch of different ways. So you've got the sword would link to the chest in your example. But in that example, the chest would also have links to everything in it.
Right.
So as well as seeing the sword is in the chest, Realmworks will automatically create a link the other way as well. So you can click on the chest and see, okay, it's got this sword, it's got this other item in it, it's got this bag of coins. As well as just looking at them in like effectively a web page, we have a feature called the link web, where you can see in a graphical way exactly what links to what. And that's something we're looking to expand as we do more stuff over the next few months. That's a feature we'll be improving as well to make it even easier to do that. But we're trying to make it even really easy to kind of visualize your campaign. Part of that is, as well as tracking text and so on, Realmworks will also track your plots. So if you prefer to outline your campaign to start it off by saying, okay, here are the kind of the overall big events that are going to be happening, and here's how the players can go through them, you can create those as plots. And Realmworks will display those in its window with the links between each of them, and draw and show you the diagram like a tree or a graph, showing you how to get from one to the other. And you can then link those plots to different topics. So that sword is part of the last encounter for your adventure, and so it would be linked to that. And so looking at that adventure as a whole, you could look at the last encounter and see everything that was involved in that last encounter.
Oh, very cool.
You could also even see have the sword marked on the map or the chest marked on the map. So you can look at the map and see a link to the chest or to the sword. And so one of the cool things is, as well as just seeing picking from a list of topics, a list of basically records from what, as well as seeing from tongue out of my face. As well as just picking from a list of records what to see, you can also look at a map and pick where to go from that, or look at your plot overall and follow the links from that. So all the links are all over the place, connecting everything to try and make it as easy as possible for you to not just have all this information, but be able to easily navigate it as well.
That's cool. And I think that what's also cool is just having the full history. Like if you, as you mentioned earlier, if you're playing in a campaign for 10 years and that sword is now transitioned through 3 villains or a hero, you can see that everybody who's ever touched the sword, and then even where they originally found it back in the day with that chest, and even what was back in the chest back then 10 years ago. It's just so cool that you can instantly find all that information. It's really neat. Colen, let's get into a little bit of detail on the Kickstarter itself. So we've been talking about this so long, and so everybody knows that you guys at Lone Wolf and you're showing at Gen Con, we know you've all been working on this thing forever. So why a Kickstarter now? What's that about?
So you're right. We've been working on Realmworks for 3 years now. It's been in testing with our testing team for, I think, almost a year at this point. And we've set a release date. We're going to launch in July this year. And so what the Kickstarter is about, all the stuff that we've been talking about is the core features of Realmworks that are mostly in place right now, and we're polishing them, we're finishing them off, we're getting the last few bits in. And if in a lot of places our testers have given us some really, really great feedback, and so we're incorporating that. But what we really want to do is go one step further than all that base functionality and add even more cool stuff, like not just you being able to create your own stuff, but the functionality I was talking about earlier, where you could share your content with other people, or you could use other people's content in your games, or even content from third-party publishers in your games. With the Kickstarter, that'll let us, if this succeeds, it'll let us bring on additional staff, and that will let us make this functionality happen earlier for the first release of Realmworks in July, as opposed to having to wait until after the initial release of the product and having it be an extra 6 to 12 months or whatever in the future. So that's really what this Kickstarter is about.
So it's about the cloud portion. It's about the fact, the online elements of the system, right? So without the Kickstarter, it'd be a really slick standalone, install it on your PC product. But now you're saying we're going to take all that and then we're going to add a cloud backend that's going to let you, create content, share content with other people. So create your, in, as you mentioned earlier, and share it with other people or whatever. But then also there's a way for players to get in and GMs to share their data from machine to machine, or even players to peek into their campaign on an off night. Let's say they're not playing today, but they want to go see what they found out last week and maybe think about what their character's going to do next time. They can go in and look at the parts that players can see in an existing campaign.
Exactly. So what we want to add with this Kickstarter is really we've really got two major things that we're doing with the whole cloud access thing. Firstly is player access and data sharing. With what we're shooting for with the Kickstarter is allowing player access so that players can see the stuff that they've learned, not just at the game as when you're showing them like the map or whatever they're looking at right now, but allowing players to use Realmworks themselves and having access to kind of a limited version where they can see where they can see the stuff that the GM's revealed, and then make their own notes. And potentially other functionality as well, and also a web-based version, so that players can log on and see all of the stuff that they've been discovering.
Well, I wanted to ask about that. So that's a good tie into platforms. So what are you looking at right now? Is it PC? Is it Mac? Is it mobile platforms? Is it web-based? What are you guys looking at right now for how it's going to work?
Right now, for the core GM functionality, initially we'll only be supporting Windows.
Okay.
After the initial release, we're going to look at other platforms. There will be, if the Kickstarter funds, there will be a web-based interface for players.
Okay.
But initially, it's going to be Windows only.
And let me ask you about licensing too. So obviously, there's one license that the GM buys, right? And then what happens for the players? Do they need a license themselves? Is it a more affordable? Is that web interface a separate subscription? How's that? You guys figured that all out yet, or is it still up in the air?
We figured out some of it. For players, the web interface will be free. For example,
cool.
we know that because it's just we want to make it as easy as possible for players to get into. To interact more with their game.
Oh, great.
We haven't figured out exactly the details yet. GMs will purchase Realmworks. Player accounts for use in the web will be free. We're still working on the other stuff.
Okay. All right. Cool.
So there's that, like, sharing information with the players, and then additionally, if we can get the cloud stuff incorporated, you'll be able to access your content from multiple machines. So you'll be able to run Realmworks on your desktop or your laptop, and as long as you're using our cloud services, any changes that you make on one will automatically be propagated down to the other. It'll also back up whatever you're doing, so that if your machine dies, for example, you will have a copy of all your stuff. The second part of the cloud is the community repository. This is another of the things that we want to make happen for the Kickstarter with Realmworks 1.0. And that's having the pre-made encounter or tavern or whatever that I was talking about. And what we want to be able to let you do is pick something from the community repository, like an encounter, an inn, whatever, drop it into your world, change some names maybe to fit in with how your campaign works, and then describe how it hooks into your campaign. So it's near, this city, or this NPC stays there, or the players get sent there by this person. And at that point, it's not really a separate thing anymore. It's part of your campaign. And all the information about it is there in your realm. So we want people to be able to download that, to grab that, share their own stuff as well. Rate content so that you'll be able to see, here are the best the best things that other people have been releasing. And then what we're also shooting for with Kickstarter is third-party publisher support. So as well as just being able to grab stuff from other users, you'll also be able to grab stuff from third-party publishers and have that directly there in Realmworks to use with your game. And the great thing about that is that if you're using a third-party adventure or a third-party setting or something, instead of then having to flip between your notes and a PDF or maybe a book with a bunch of sticky notes in it, because in your game this guy, the leader of this cult is different, or he's got a different name or something, you can just make those changes directly in Realmworks and have it all just fit into your game.
That's really cool. Now, what about you made me think of this. Blizzard did an interesting thing with StarCraft, as you mentioned earlier, that they allowed user-defined content to be shared in their Blizzard servers, but then they also allowed people to charge for that content. Have you guys given any thought to monetizing? If a player does a lot of work in making a really, really cool world, is it automatically shared for free, or is that too far down the road to talk about, or any thought to that?
That'll absolutely be up to the player. What we're envisioning is that some stuff will be free, some stuff will be pay content. And so what we're hoping is that people will be able to do things like, let's say that somebody has come up with a series of 3 adventures. Maybe they make that first adventure free, and then adventures number 2 and 3 they charge for. And then there'll be of course the best free stuff versus the best paid stuff. We want there to be an ecosystem of both, so that you can use the free stuff as much as you want, and then you can use the hopefully the really good stuff that people have spent, that people are charging for. You can grab that when you need it as well.
Cool. Craig, I've been monopolizing here. You want to ask a couple questions?
Well, actually, I did have one question that kind of ties in. You had mentioned Hero Lab earlier, and the integration with Hero Lab, and I was just wondering how deep is that integration going to be? Like, can you port over entire chunks from Hero Lab, so all of your information is going to be all in one place?
Yes, absolutely. So in Realmworks, let's say that you're creating an encounter in Realmworks. So it might have a trap, it might have a bunch of orcs. And in Hero Lab, because of course you're using Hero Lab to run your Pathfinder game or whatever, you've created an encounter in there as well. What you can do is just stick the portfolio from Hero Lab into Realmworks. And at that point, that portfolio is in Realmworks. You can open it from within Realmworks. You can edit it. You can tell Realmworks to open it in Hero Lab and let you edit it. And so you can track all of the content for that encounter in Realmworks. And that's another really cool thing about Realmworks, is that instead of having maybe your own notes and then a printed out map and then a Hero Lab portfolio, instead of having all these separate sources of information for your adventure, you have them all within Realmworks. So it's much easier to index them, to find what you need to find, and to just look at everything.
Oh, what? Now, when you port it over, is it going to make all of those links and hyperlinks for you? Like as soon as you get over, or do you have to go through it a little bit?
I believe you would have to just enter the names of all of the characters manually to link everything up. Awesome. So it's not going to index within a Hero Lab portfolio, at least not at first.
Gotcha. And from the Hero Lab file, the pictures and everything will go with it?
Absolutely. So we actually recently made a change to Hero Lab so that programs like Realmworks can open a portfolio and very easily extract a stat block or an image and then display that within Realmworks. So I believe we're going to have stat blocks being displayed. So as well as opening Hero Lab, you'll be able to just see a stat block of whatever content, and then potentially other information like pictures in the future.
Nice.
Very cool. Colin and I threw out to the Twitterverse here. I said that we'd be interviewing you tonight. And did they have any questions? And so I have a couple questions from the audience. Is that okay if you answer a couple?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, here we go. So one person wanted to know, will there be an NPC archive management system? I think it's sort of implicit, but can you give a little details on ways people can track their NPCs in Realmworks?
For managing your own NPCs or getting NPCs that other people have?
I think managing your own probably is what he's thinking about.
Sure. So you can... so everything in Realmworks is organized, is categorized. Mm-hmm. So you've got so you'll have a list of your NPCs. You can attach Hero Lab portfolios to those. You can describe their backgrounds and enter information about those. Mm-hmm. Once you've done that, you can do a full text search within those. So you can find any NPC who mentions something specific. And then any links, of course, that are created, you'll also be able to see those and see which NPCs are related to which things. So if you have an organization, you'll be able to easily find all the NPCs associated with that organization. We also support what we call tags, which let you tag an NPC as maybe an elf or a human or male or of this nationality. Mm-hmm. And with that, you can filter on tags as well. So you can easily see, give me all my elf NPCs. Or if you had a level tag, you could say, give me all my level 11 NPCs or level 11 through 15 NPCs to make it as easy as possible to find stuff in your database as possible.
Great.
Wow.
That's pretty good. That's pretty amazing. Now, someone else asked, will you be supporting Steam or Steam's Greenlight or anything like that?
We will not be going through Steam. Realmworks is going to be its own thing with its own service.
Okay, fair enough. I think, Curt, you got any other good questions for Colen here?
Well, yeah, actually, I mean, you guys have used the tools, so you guys kind of maybe a better understanding of it than I do. And from what I've seen on Kickstarter and what we've been talking about, I definitely see a real intricate picture pulling together on, how it's a repository and how it's all cross, interconnected and you can, cross-referenced. But the one thing I'm curious about, I can definitely see, how it's a repository of information, how it's all interlinked, so it's all cross-referenced, and it seems like a great way to kind of build a world as well as keep track of what happens in that world. But in terms of like actually running the module, are you typing your module into the system and working through it, the flow of that module at, actually in Realmworks itself, or is that kind of something separate?
You mean how do you get that module into Realmworks in the first place?
Well, I guess I don't see like any icon at the top that says this particular module and here's the story flow. I see like listings of a city and its background and those kind of things, or I've seen like character interrelationships and those kind of things. But in terms of like if I'm a DM, I'm sitting at the table, I've got my players out there, and I'm actually running the adventure.
So you're saying like encounters and plot points, like
exactly. Where does all that content go in here?
I see. So for plot points and for plot points, they would go in either as just any other entry, for plot points, they would go in as just any other entry. So just like you have locations and cities and so on, you also have events and plot points that you can create or define and put all that stuff in there. We're also hoping to be able to get what we call articles into 1.0 of Realmworks, and that'll be the place for, I think, what you're describing as like longer form text like that, where you'll have like a background of here's the background for the adventure that you need to know before the players start, and so the articles are designed to keep track of that much more easily. For overall like plot points and so on, you would also represent those as plots, which will display a graphical representation of how the flow of your adventure goes.
But there's nothing that's like like if you bought a third-party adventure module, and you open it up and it's got your map and a blow by blow of all the different rooms and what happens as soon as you enter the room and those kind of things. Those are in there, but they're in plot points and events, is what you're saying?
They would be entered however makes sense for those to be entered. So you'd have a list of locations for the module, right? And you could also have a list of events or a list of basically anything. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm not getting your question.
Yeah, so
I think so.
I think you're asking about sequencing, right, Curt? Like, so you can make a bunch of events and then you need to link them together, so so that the party enters a town and
oh right, yeah, that's
Bob's going to
totally...
walk up and say, hey, the first thing it's going to see is Bob's going to walk up and say, welcome to the Shire or whatever. That kind of sequence, I think, is what Curt's going for. Where do you go to see what we're going to do first, second, and third, assuming they follow sort of the semi-expected path, right?
Yeah, totally. So that's absolutely what our support of plots is for. So it's kind of hard to describe. If you look on the website, we've got some screenshots of it, but you basically see a graphical display of all of the events or the plot points in your adventure, and how they connect to each other.
And it's kind of like a flow chart, right? It's sort of like a computer
yes,
flow
thank
chart.
you, a
It
flow
takes you
chart.
through,
That's what I was
and so you
grasping
start
for.
here, and you can even say like, okay, if they kill the messenger, then you go this way. If they, if they agree to go with the messenger to see the king, you go that way, and you sort of have your encounters laid out that way. And so, but then it all branches out to, when you click on that plot point, then it all branches out to these are all the locations there. When you click on that location, it branches out to these are all the items that are there, and the creatures that are there, and the NPCs that are there, and you just drill all the way down.
Right, thank you. The flow charts is exactly what it is. That was what I was trying to figure out. And the really cool thing is that you can then take the flow chart that we generate from your plot. You can track the bits that the players did and didn't go, the bits that they didn't visit, and you can then make that available to the players so that they can see what happened in the adventure so far through that flowchart, but they don't see anything that they didn't do. So if they skipped some options on the flowchart and didn't see those encounters, those never get shown to them.
Okay.
Is that what you're looking for, Curt?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Right, cool. Great. Well, Colin, what other is there any other questions for Colin, or Colin, you have anything you want to get out there but didn't cover?
I don't think so. Just if you Google Realmworks Kickstarter, you'll find us on Kickstarter. We've got some cool rewards, copies of Realmworks, pre-release access to the product, which is really cool. We also have some cool stretch goals that we'll be looking at once we get closer to hitting our goal for the Kickstarter. So definitely check the project out and keep an eye on it over the next couple of weeks, hopefully, as we get ready to unveil that stuff.
Yeah, full disclosure, I'm already a backer, baby. Can't wait.
Awesome.
I can't wait.
Very cool.
I'm very excited. I'm getting ready to run an Iron Kingdoms campaign, and I wish I had it now, Colin. Just saying. All right, good stuff. Well, any other questions for Colin before we let him go? Get back to the management of Kickstarter stuff there?
No, I think that was I'm more excited than I was when I was using it in the beta.
There we go. Well, Colin, thank you so much for joining us. And where can people go to find out more about Lone Wolf development in general?
You can find out about Lone Wolf and about Realmworks at our website, www.wolflayer.com.
Great. Well, thanks, Colin.
Thanks. Great talking, guys.
You're listening to the D6 generation. Born to game.
And so we're in the tail end of January here up in the frozen Northeast. And that means it is cold outside.
Negative 18 with wind chill.
Yeah, it's crazy. And when it's cold outside, Russ, what do we start daydreaming about?
We daydream about any place warm with gaming.
That's right. You need warmth and gaming.
Exactly right. And margaritas, preferably, with those.
And margaritas would actually go a ways to make even right now feel a little bit better. But of course, if you're trying to put together margaritas and gaming and someplace warm, or just margaritas and gaming, or just gaming, there's no better place to go than Geek Nation Tours.
That's right. Get on over to their website, check out the upcoming tours link, and check out all the hotness that is Geek Nation Tours. All the great places they go, whether it's a Trek convention, whether it's the place that Captain Kirk died, whether it's Gen Con, whether it's Adepticon, whether it's PAX East, PAX Prime, you name it, they go there. And what you want to do, when you call Geek Nation Tours and you look at this great stuff and you're like, Terrace, hook me up. I want to go on a tour. Well, if you're going to go on a tour, you want to have some bling. And if you tell Terrace that you heard about it here on the D6 generation, he will make sure you get a genuine, fully authentic D6G stitched patch with Velcro hooks attached to your favorite Battlefield bag or your favorite jacket or whatever you want to do.
I bet you could stitch it onto your really cool bowling shirt that you get when you go on Geek Nation Tours vacations.
And that is geeknationtours.com.
Yay! This edition of Did You Ever Notice is brought to you by Cranky, who would like to say thank you to Garage Hammer, Painting Table, Bad Dice Podcast, Ohio Hammer, Wisso Dice, Dirigo Hobbies, and everyone who contributed to or participated with Team Cranky for Extra Life 12. Looking forward to Extra Life 13. Go Rhinox Riders! Did you ever notice how sometimes when you get your fondest wish, it's not quite what you expected? I think I can't remember actually who said this quote, but I've come across it several times in my reading of fantasy and science fiction over the years. There are two great curses in human life: to be denied your heart's fondest desire and to achieve it. And I think that's sort of true, because once you've achieved your life's fondest desire, well, one, you don't know what to do next. And two, it's almost never going to be exactly as you pictured it. And I would like to talk a little bit today about writing, because a whole bunch of you asked me to talk about that topic over the summer when I was having my existential crisis. And I think it would be interesting and intriguing. So I thought I would just put down a few of my thoughts, because it really is an example of things are not exactly as you expected. If you're anything like me, you write short stories, or you wrote short stories when you were in high school. Maybe your friends, maybe you did creative battle reports, all sorts of things like that. And you thought locally people liked your stuff, and you think, one day maybe I got a novel in me, or, I really actually am going to be a writer someday, and all these thoughts. And of course, the question is, how do you segue from that, the local guy who writes and his friends say his stuff is cool, to actually getting people to pay you to write? And I think that what I tell my students who want to be actors fits in a lot with this. And that, unfortunately, is that there is a great deal of luck involved, because both acting and in writing, very subjective. So you have to find exactly the right people who think that you have some talent, and you have to find them on the right day when they're looking for somebody. And you have to have exactly the right thing they're looking for when they're looking for it. So there's an awful lot of luck. And I guarantee you out there, and you can see it now in self-published ebooks, there are a lot of great writers out there that just haven't been able to find somebody to promote their stuff. And so it's a lot of luck. How did I do it? I did a podcast. It really came down to that. I'm known a little bit. I have little micro fame, as we say, in the industry. Not by a lot of people, not by most people even, but by some people. And some people have heard of me, or at the very least know of what we do here and how long we've been doing it, and that I'm not some flake that's, just all of a sudden showing up at a doorstep. And so what I did was, I knew I've had a bunch of contacts, and I chose one that I thought I was a good fit with. And I crafted a short story, and of course it was Spartan Games, as those of you who have been listening for a long time know. And their most popular property at that time, and still at this time, was Dystopian Wars. And so I wrote a short story, and I crafted it, and I worked it, and I worked it, and I hammered it, and I edited it, and I wrote over and over and over again. And when I thought I had something that was really good and kind of captured not only Dystopian Wars, but my personal take on it, I got in touch with Neil, which is, again, that part of making yourself established in an area first, and then going with what you wanted to do. So, and again, a lot of luck. I have no idea why you guys listen to us. Seriously, I have no idea. But you do, which I think is awesome. And I'm super ridiculously hyper appreciative. And because you guys listen to me, Neil knew who I was, and Neil listened to us, and Neil wanted to get on the show and talk to us. And so I had developed a relationship with Neil already, and he would respond to my emails, and, he would send me pictures about, the next models that were coming out, and knew I was excited about it. So I wrote to him and I said, I don't know if you're in the market for a writer, but I would appreciate if you read this. And he read it and he liked it. And the next thing you know, I was writing stuff for him. Really odd, the very same month somebody was like, oh, you're interested in writing, send us a sample. And that was Fantasy Flight Games. And I had to take the test. There's a test, believe it or not, of 40K lore, and you have to write about all these different things. And so I took that, and they apparently liked my stuff, and so they picked me up also. So it really went from, this is a dream, someday it would be neat, to all of a sudden writing for 2 different companies. And it was awesome. It was really cool. But the whole point of this is, it's never what you really think. Because when you're writing for yourself or your friends, you write whatever comes into your mind. You're like, woohoo, I love this stuff, or this game, so I'm going to write a battle report about this game. And that's not how it works. Basically, what's going on is you're writing to somebody's plan, to somebody's outline for somebody's product. And so you get an email or you get a phone call, and it's, hey, we need 3,000 words about this. And you're like, oh, but that's not really what I'm excited to write about right now. I really want to write about something else, but that doesn't matter. So you're going to write about, what they want you to write about. And even then, if you're at all creative, which I think most creative people are sort of the same way I am, you're constantly doubting yourself and you're constantly wondering, oh, what am I doing and what's going on here? And so, you're writing with this fear of, oh yeah, but they like me enough to ask me to write, but then what am I going to do? And it's intriguing. It's each of these worlds or each of these places that I've written for are totally different. I thought Spartan Games was going to be great because I love science fiction and I love fantasy. Steampunk is okay, but I love science fiction. I love fantasy. They have both. I think both universes are really cool. And I did a lot of work in both Uncharted Seas and Firestorm Armada. And then the thing is that you get these notes back, and the notes start to craft you in a direction, point you in a direction, which is where they want your writing to be. So basically they've said, okay, we think you can put a good sentence together, and now we want you to do this. And for Spartan Games, for instance, it's very historical. It's very factual. It's very matter of, plot point, plot point, plot point. They don't want a lot of adjectives. They don't want a lot of flair and energy, which is really not like my writing. Naturally, I think the natural form of my writing is very narrative. It's very cinematic. It's very story driven. And they want much more historical sort of encyclopedia sort of things. So I try to do my best there. Fantasy Flight with Warhammer 40,000, everything I write has to go through Games Workshop, which is kind of crazy to me that people in Games Workshop are reading what I wrote and okaying it, which I think is awesome. But again, totally different. Now we're talking about grim dark, and that literally is a term, grim dark, one word that you get in your notes all the time. You got to grim dark this up a bit. You can it's either an adjective or a verb, really, when you get it as feedback. And so that becomes very different from everything else that you're writing. All of a sudden, everything's got to be gothic and dripping with skulls and dripping with strangeness and dripping with grimdark. And so that gets kind of like, okay, I'll do this. But it again, it's sort of repetitive. So over here, I'm doing, encyclopedia stuff and not a lot of stories and not a lot of character. And over here, I'm doing like a lot of dark and grim future and blah, blah, blah. And which is awesome. And I'm super excited about both of them. But they're very different from my natural impulses and instincts. And then now we have this awesome opportunity with Wild West Exodus, where I'm writing a ridiculous amount as far as word count goes. And all of a sudden, I'm like, woo, yeah, this is awesome. I got stories. I got narrative. I got characters. This is exactly what I wanted. Again, though, these are somebody else's stories, somebody else's characters. And what I'm doing is, so basically what happens is from the Dark Council, I get my notes, usually bullet points. I'll get like 1 or 2 pages of bullet points in a phone call. And then I will craft around those bullet points a story that hits all those bullet points and gets all that information across, but tells it in a way that I think is interesting and intriguing and keeps the reader focused on what's going on, but it's a story. And so it's very exciting. But again, it's, you're never going to be, unless you're a novel writer, if you're writing in the industry, unless you're like, one of the top 2 guys in the whole place where people go, hey, I love what you do, just create me a world. For the most part, you're working as a team. It's a collaborative effort, which I think is awesome because you just have to do it. And you get to bounce ideas back and forth, and you get really creative. And especially Fantasy Flight, for each assignment, they set up a website and an email group, and you're just constantly bouncing ideas around. And oh, hey, what about this? And people will find pictures on the internet, and they'll send them. So it's a creative. I don't think I've ever felt quite like that since I stopped acting. So you were part of a cast, and you had a director, but all the actors would like give ideas, and it would be this big creative bundle of energy. And that's a Fantasy Flight writing group is very much like that. But different, different from staying at home and on your keyboard until you've got like a cool battle report that you think your friends would like. And so, I mean, that's the key. The key is, I think, to me, what I'm trying to convey is that I wanted to be a writer, and now by anyone's definition, I am a writer, which just seems ridiculously weird to say. I'm constantly qualifying in the back of my head. Well, you can't really call yourself a writer if you're, that's not your real job. But I'm being told over and over again mainly by my mother, that I am a writer now. So I'm not allowed to say that I'm not really a writer. But here, like, it's a totally different thing than I was thinking. And so it always pays to think through, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I love each of the companies that I've worked for. And I'm very, very grateful to all of them. And I enjoy the ongoing relationships that I have with all of them. But, at the same time, there's always that next thing. And that's the thing. You get your heart's desire, but now what? And now what for me is, I hear Curt talking about writing a novel, and I'm like, oh, that's what I want to do now. That's what I want to do next. I mean, I wrote one once, and how do I say this? It was bad. It was really bad. It was really, really, really bad. But I did it, and I finished it. So that's, one thing I can check off. And now I can write a good one eventually, once I finish all the other stuff that I'm doing, which is, I don't think ever going to happen. But the key is, you work at it, you strive at it. And that was my journey so far. I mean, God knows what the future holds. Now, all of a sudden, there's actually a comic book with my name on it. I mean, I never even thought about being a comic book writer. And so just my journey, as most of my life has been an odd journey and convoluted, to say the least. And this has been no different. So I'm very excited to see what the future holds on all fronts. I'm very thankful for the opportunities that I've had. And if I were to give one piece of advice that I got from W.E.B. Griffin, William Butterworth is his real name, but he said, writers don't want to write, they write. And you write whatever it is somebody's going to pay you to write, and that's how you become a writer. And that's how he became a writer. I mean, he wrote a whole slew of different books under a billion different names. Generally best known for his military fiction now, but that was his advice. I met him a couple times. He was a trustee of my college, so he would come in a couple times and talk to us, especially us English majors. And that was his thing: is writers don't want to write, writers write. And so you got to write, and you write just like I wrote that first short story that honestly never saw the light of day. Nobody's seen that short story that I sent to Neil that first time, except for Neil. They didn't need it, they didn't want it, but it showed that I could write. So that's what that's the purpose that it served. So you write, and you keep writing, and you keep sending it to people, and hopefully eventually all that luck comes up, and you get your chance. And when you get your chance, don't read the internet, because that's just craziness. As long as people are continuing to pay you, then assume that everything is going well. And if people care about you and they have constructive criticism, they'll find you in some other way than the internet, because it's just full of nerd rage, as I said last week. And you know what? The sad thing is, even when it's a friend of yours, nerd rage is ugly. Okay? We don't condone it in any way, shape, or form, friend or foe. So I'm not going to go any further. I'm going to be politic and not go any further with that. But nerd rage is bad wherever it comes from. Avoid it. That's all I've got to say about that. So thanks for listening, and good night.
Achievement unlocked. You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by either emailing us at info@the d6generation.com or by posting in our official D6G episode thread at the top of the DACA discussions forum on DACA.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening, and happy gaming.
The theme from Total Fangirl comes from the soundtrack of The Last Night on Earth, the zombie game, courtesy of Flying Frog Productions, and is a composition of Mary Beth Magalanes.
All that talk of Robotech in the news got me really excited. I just had to staple this theme onto the end of the show. Enjoy.